You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion new single, my hater, the big better put on the road, I just spit. I know we got $1 million, the devil, that shit, and I cheap it again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Naruto Meets to Loveru. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of martial anime on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. This soup tastes so good. Lala praised as they sat at the diner table. It's a miso soup with clams, Mikan told her as she finished giving everyone their plates. I see. Earthling food is delicious, isn't it, Mikan? Lala happily said. Tsk, it's not that, Lala. It's the cook's skill, Mikan said, proud of her culinary abilities. Yeah. Mikan's the best when it comes to cooking, Riko added to the conversation. Things just keep getting worse, don't they? Naruto thought to himself, completely oblivious to the conversation going on around him. It wouldn't be good if innocent people got caught up in this mess, and if even one of these guys is strong enough to put up a fight, Naruto contemplated as he stared off into space. Hey, Naruto. Naruto. Mikan called out, bringing the blonde back to reality. Honestly, what could possibly be going through your head to distract you like this? Mikan asked with her head resting in her palms as she sits at the table. Nothing, Naruto told her, no use getting her worried for possibly nothing. Did you need something? Naruto asks the younger girl. Not really, just wondering when you and are getting married, the brunette said with a smile. Am married? Naruto stuttered out before shaking the image of his and Lala's weeding out of his head before it could begin. I really don't need that image in my head right now, Naruto told himself as he forced down a blush. Why did I have to end up in a family that's so okay with weird events? Naruto asked the brunette. I didn't hear you complaining when mom and dad first brought you home, Riko pointed out with a smile directed at the blonde. Trying to think of an answer for that, Naruto ended up agreeing with her. Next day, Seinan High School. She really needs to hold back more, Naruto thought to himself after seeing Lala speed down a 100-meter sprint far faster than a normal human should be able to. Uzumaki, heads up, one boy called out as the soccer ball came straight for the blonde. I can worry about that later, Naruto thought with a grin as he brought his shin up to stop the ball and started kicking the ball towards the goal before it hit the ground. Over with the girls, hey, isn't she absolutely terrific? Right, Haruna? Risa asked as she turned around to look at the girl. Haruna, the blonde questioned, noticing Haruna wasn't paying attention to what was happening with the girls' group. Hey, Haruna baby, what's up? Risa cheered as she surprised Haruna by reaching around from behind her and grpng her melons. Your bub are small and cute as usual, the blonde added. You're zoning out a lot lately, Haruna. Mio, a cute girl with dark brown hair done up into 2 pigtails and wearing glasses over her light brown eyes, joyfully pointed out. Letting Haruna go, Risa said while pointing at the violet-haired girl, I bet you're in love or something. I know, it's Sasuke-sensei, isn't it? He's really hot, Mio said, referring to the young blonde teacher that was in charge of the tennis club that Haruna was a member of. And no, it's not like that, Haruna defended herself as she covered her chest with her arms. Lunch PRD. Hey Lala, what kind of guys are your other fiancé candidates? Naruto asked the girl sitting across from him as her, Riko, Tsuruyama, and him were once again eating their lunch with a few desks pushed together. Huh? Lala blinked in surprise as she paused from the lunch Mikan had prepared for her. Why do you want to know something like that? They're not interesting in the slightest, Lala commented with furrowed eyebrows. What? Afraid you don't stack up to them? Tsuruyama jested with a big grin as he lightly elbowed the blonde sitting next to him. Not in the way you're thinking, the blonde said with a light glare sent at the boy as he grabbed Tsuruyama's arm. Turning back to Lala as he let Tsuruyama's arm go as he was trying to pull it away and ended up tumbling over onto the ground. Naruto told her, "Zaston gave me a message from your father yesterday, said some of them would be coming to try and take you. I wanted to know if there were any you could think of that were strong," Naruto told Lala. Papa said that. Lala said in surprise with a hint of annoyance in her voice. Well, he just needs to tell them I won't leave Naruto. Lala said, her annoyance even more apparent. I'm not sure it works that way. Naruto was going to say when his phone began to ring. Huh? Who's calling? Other than mom and dad, everyone who has my number should be in school right now, Naruto wondered to himself as he answered the phone. Hello, Uzumaki. Naruto, the person on the other side of the line, greeted the blonde. This voice, Sasuke-sensei. Naruto thought as his eyes narrowed. I have something to talk about with you regarding the princess of Devi Luke. May I see you immediately, Sasuke-sensei told him, surprising Naruto that he'd know Lala was a princess. If you refuse, one of your female classmates will suffer the consequences, the man told him. Who is it? Naruto asked as he looked around the classroom, trying to figure out which girl he had taken. Haruna, Naruto breathlessly said after noticing the girl wasn't with Risa and Mio like normal. That's right, Sarenji Haruna, a classmate of yours and Lala's. If you don't honor my request, something unpleasant will happen to her. Understood, Uzumaki. Naruto. I'll be waiting in the storage shed, Sasuke told him before hanging up. Something happen? Riko asked, very familiar with what the serious expression the blonde was making meant. Haruna's in trouble, Naruto told them as he glared at his phone, an image of an unconscious Haruna being held up by mechanical tendrils now on his screen. Fufu, now that I think about it, she's just as good as Lala, Sasuke commented with a leer as he looked the captive girl up and down. Pulling out a remote, Sasuke activated even more of the tendrils, making them wrap around and grope the girl as he grinned perversely. Sasuke. Naruto roared as he yanked the shed's door wide open. You're pretty fast, aren't you, Uzumaki. Naruto. I wouldn't have minded, Sasuke was saying as he turned to face the blonde, only to pause in confusion when he spotted a familiar head of pink hair behind the boy. I don't remember saying to bring Lala with you, the man said with a glare. Ah. It doesn't matter. The deal still stands, stop your courtship of Lala and I will hand Haruguwa, the man was yelling as his form changed to that of a larger gray creature with large ear-like shapes along the sides of his face, bulging eyes, large sharp teeth, and a dark purple plate-like feature on top of his head, only to be sent flying across the room when Naruto landed a solid punch to the side of his face as he ran towards Haruna. Why you punched me, the alien said in complete shock as he held his swelling face with tears forming in the corners of his eyes. You're lucky if I don't beat you into a bloody pulp for this. Naruto told the man as he took out a kunai he kept hidden on his person and slashed Haruna's metallic binds. Ghi Bree. Lala said as she walked up to the downed alien while Naruto gentility let Haruna fall into his arms. What are you doing here? I already told you that I hate you so many times. Lala told the man as she stood over him with her hands on her hips. Cowering under the pinkett Ghi Bree's form began to rapidly shrink. What is he? Naruto asked after walking over to Lala with Haruna in a bridal carry and her head resting on his shoulder. I believe he's a Balkeen, Peak answered. Despite having an excellent mimicry ability, their body power is extremely delicate, Peak explained as they looked down at the puny true form of Ghi Bree as he held up his arms in defense. Lady Lala, what should we do with him? Peak asked, it wasn't like they could just leave him here. After a moment of thought Lala brought out her D-dial and summoned what looked like a toilet shaped like a duck's head. / warp Kuan. Lala announced the name of her invention before picking up Ghi Bree with one hand. I'll flush him down this and deport him from Earth, the pinkett said as she opened the lid. Don't ever come back to Earth anymore, GHI Bree, Lala told the small alien before dropping him into the swirling water. How does she come up with these crazy inventions? Naruto briefly wondered as he watched GHI Bree disappear into the strange device. Come on, we should get Haruna to the nurse's office, Naruto said as he made sure Haruna wasn't going to fall out of his grasp. If she doesn't remember anything when she wakes up, tell her you brought her to the nurse's office after she collapsed from anemia, Naruto told Lala as he walked to the door. But you're the one that saved her. Lala said, confused that he didn't tell her to tell Haruna that he carried her to the nurse's office. Maybe, Naruto said with a smile as he gave a slight shrug. But I'll have to go back to class and tell Sarima and Riko that everything's okay. She'd probably have less questions if the person that saved her was the one waiting for her to wake up, Naruto told Lala. Besides, it's not like I did anything special, Naruto said as he looked over his shoulder at the Pinkett, a warm smile plastered in his face. I don't think so at all, Lala mumbled under her breath as she began to follow after the blonde. Nurse's office. Hey, Mikado-sensei, you here? Naruto asked as the two of them walked into the room. I'm surprised, for once you're not here because you got yourself hurt, Mikado, a woman with brownish red hair, green eyes, a curvaceous form that most girls would envy. She wore a white lab coat over her pink top that revealed a good portion of the sizable melons held together by a belt on her waist, and a black skirt, said with a smile as she sat in her office chair by her desk. Hey, I stopped by for more than that, Naruto retorted with a fake hurtful look as he took Haruna over to an empty bed. Turning her gaze to Lala, so you're Princess Lala then? I was wondering about those rumors, Mikado said as he rested her left hand on her cheek. You know about Lala/Lady Lala? Naruto and Pieck both asked at the same time as the blonde put Haruna down. Just because I'm living on a planet that's largely separated from the rest of the universe doesn't mean I can't recognize the first princess of Deviluk, Mikado told them. You're an alien as well, aren't you? Naruto asked with a half-hearted glare, annoyed that she hadn't told him. I told you where I was from didn't I, the blonde pointed out. True, but I guess the subject of where I came from just never came up, Mikado told him with a smirk as she looked at him out of the corner of her eye. I find that hard to believe, Naruto thought to himself as he stared at the woman. So are you and Naruto friends as well? Lala asked, happy to meet another of the blonde's friends. I guess you wouldn't be wrong saying that, Mikado admitted. He'd show up more often at the beginning of the year when he'd spend most of his free time training, but I guess now he has friends to spend that time with, Mikado said as Naruto made his way to the door. He's even carrying cute girls around in his arms now, the woman said with a playful look as she stared into the back of Naruto's head. Wait, Naruto began as he froze in the doorway. DMN. Why did you have to point it out like that? Naruto thought as his face turned red. He had all but forgotten about his crush on the girl while he was carrying her. I'll see you later then, Lala, Naruto got out before stepping forward and shutting the door. It would have been better if he'd turned around to show off his blushing face, Mikado thought, enjoying being able to tease the boy so easily. So you're going to stay with her then? Mikado asked Lala as the Pinkett sat next to Haruna's bed. Yup. Lala cheerfully told the nurse. Some time later. Are you awake, Haruna? Lala asked the girl after she began to open her eyes with a few groans here and there. Lala? Haruna questioned as her vision cleared and she could clearly see the Pinkett looking down at her. What happened? The purple-haired girl asked. You collapsed near the tennis club's room. They said it was anemia, Lala told the girl. Anemia? Haruna questioned as she sat up with her hand over her heart. Either way. Lala cheered as she surprised Haruna by embracing the girl. I'm so glad that you're safe, Haruna. Lala, were you the one who found me? Haruna asked as she sat there in Lala's arms. Pulling back slightly, Lala told the girl, nope, the one who saved you was Naruto. You didn't have to tag along with us, you know. If there's something you'd rather be doing, Naruto was telling Rin as the two of them walked along behind Lala, Mikan, and Riko. Naruto had completely forgotten that he already had plans to spend the day with the older girl when he agreed to show Lala around town today. So it was a bit nerve-wracking to have to call her and let her know he couldn't stop by today. It was surprising however when she insisted that she join them. "I know, but our training was the only thing I had planned today and I don't mind helping you show Lala around," Rin told him. "That and I don't think Lady Saki would let me hear the end of it if I didn't take the chance to spend the day with you regardless," Rin thought to herself as she pictured the girl she vowed to protect and greatly respected. Saki was a kind person especially towards her friends, as such the blonde girl born into wealth has been helping Rin with her relationship issues ever since she found out about her crush on the blonde next to her. Even if he didn't choose to be in this relationship, that doesn't mean you can let your guard down. She's still his fiancée and that gives her the advantage, so you have to work even harder if you want to capture his heart. Saki's words rang through her head. "I don't even think of him like that," Rin thought with a small blush as she glanced at the blonde out of the corner of her eye. "Wow! This is the Earthlings' town. It's got so many things, how interesting," Lala happily said as she looked all around them. "It's almost like showing a child something new," Rin commented. "Yeah, it's kinda what I expected," Naruto told her. "Though I guess she's not the only one seeing something new today," Naruto commented after noticing all of the passing people gazing at the Pinket's normal clothes, some of them even taking out their phones to snap a picture or two. "Lala. Come here for a sec," Riko told the girl as she grabbed hold of her wrist and dragged her off to an empty alley. "Should we follow them?" Rin briefly asked before Naruto gave a shrug and moved to the alley Riko and Lala went into. "Before we wander around the town, can you do something about your outfit? You're getting more attention than needed," Riko told Lala as the rest of the group came into the alley behind them. I can't be in a dress mode?" Lala asked, confused as to why she had to change her outfit. It's not that you can't, it's just," Riko began trying to figure out the best way to explain the problem to the Pinket. "Sightseeing on Earth is what you wanted to do today," Lala, Mikon began, relieving Riko of the task of explaining much to the girl's gratitude. "So if you want to go around the town without any trouble, it's probably better to wear some normal clothes," Mikon told the girl. "I see," Lala said in understanding with Peak saying, "No other way," shortly after. "Peak can transform into any kind of outfit, right?" Naruto asked as he took a step to the side. "She can just imitate some random people walking around," the blonde said as he put his arm out towards the busy street. Stepping up to the edge of the alley, the others stood back and watched as Lala and Peak picked out an outfit to copy. "How is this?" Lala cheerfully asked as she turned around to show off the business outfit complete with glasses, receiving odd looks from the group. Maybe a different outfit would work better," Naruto hesitantly told the girl. Several costume changes later, that seemingly got more absurd as they went on. "Maybe we should just take her to a clothes store," Naruto absent-mindedly wondered as he stared into space when Lala finished changing once more. "This then?" Lala asked as she wore a dark violet, almost black, dress with a light pink top connected by a thin red ribbon just below her bust. "All right." Naruto cheered after taking the sight in. "Getting around will be a breeze with that one," Naruto told her. "I was worried we'd be standing here for a while," Naruto thought with a relieved smile. "Good. Then let's go," Lala cheered as she grabbed onto Naruto's arm and to his shook started dragging him along. Lala. What are you doing?" the blonde asked the Pinket as he worked on getting his footing so that he wouldn't get dragged across the town. "Don't want to be left behind," Riko said with a smile as she and the others took off after the two. An hour of window shopping later. "What are those, Mikon?" Riko asked the young brunette as the group walking through the somewhat crowded street with Naruto and Rin trailing a few steps behind the other three. "Today's is surprisingly pretty normal, even if I would have preferred to have gotten some training in," Naruto thought to himself as Mikon explained how she got tickets to a new aquarium for buying clothes. "I wonder if she's upset that I cancelled our training," Naruto thought as he took a glance at the girl walking beside him. It was the sound of Riko's panicked voice that brought Naruto's attention back to the whole group. "Lala. Your outfit is disappearing, the orange-haired teen shouted after noticing the dress covering Lala's modesty slowly dissolving. I am really sorry Lady Lala, Pete began with a tired voice after Mikan asked what was happening. It seems that I'm running out of energy. I guess the continuous form change earlier burdened me more than expected, Pete told the group. What? The blonde let out. What'll happen if your energy runs out? Rin asked as she took a step closer to the costume robot. Then I won't be able to keep the costume shape, probably in about 3 minutes, Pete said as his voice grew even heavier. Hee, seems like we got some trouble, Lala said with a nervous smile while rubbing the back of her head, and as if to emphasize her statement, what was left of her purple panties decided to drop down to the ground at that moment. So much for a normal day. Naruto complained, mostly, to himself as he grabbed hold of Lala's wrist and began dragging her through the crowd. Where are we going, Naruto? Lala calmly asked the blonde leading her down the street. Somewhere that isn't a crowd. Naruto told her as he silently cured the shopping district for having a roof over its streets. At least on a they'd have some time to work this problem out. Naruto, turn right. The sound of Mikan's voice calling out from behind them reached Naruto's ears as the crowd, mostly the guys, started to notice and gawk at the soon-to-be naked beauty. Taking her advice, Naruto and Lala practically burst through the store's entrance in the hope it be safe for the Pinkett. A lingerie store. Naruto mentally shouted as he was about to turn around and look for a different store to duck into. One look at the rags barely holding themselves together that was once a dress had Naruto relenting as he made a beeline straight for the changing room. Stay in here for now. Naruto told Lala as he pushed past the pink curtain separating the changing room from the rest of the store. Lala, try these on, Mikan said, out of breath after running after the two, as she opened the curtain briefly to give the Pinkett a handful of underwear. Taking a step back to regain her breath, Mikan commented, now underwear is taken care of. Why yeah, Naruto said with an odd, raged, look. How can a normal day become 100 times more stressful than a full week of the toughest training Rasengan can throw at me so quickly? Naruto asked himself as Mikan grabbed hold of Riko's hand and began heading for the door. We'll go buy Lala some clothes. You two keep an eye on her, Mikan instructed Naruto and Rin as the two sisters left. You okay? You look like you're going to collapse any minute now, Rin told her blonde friend with a small smile. Something about seeing the guy she'd watched train from sunup to sundown on so many occasions before look like he'll collapse after a short run down the street was so amusing to her. Just fine, Naruto said with a half-hearted glare directed at her for the small jab, the stuffed purple rabbit he'd won for the currently naked girl a few feet away from the pair firmly held in his left hand. Taking a brief look around one of the only lingerie shops he's ever set foot in, it wasn't long before a familiar face all but made his heart stop. Haruna? Naruto questioned as the two looked eyes with one another as the girl had a pair of panties held up. Uzumaki? Haruna slowly replied as her stunned look traveled from the blonde to the older girl standing with him. Oh. Haruna began as her face exploded into bright red when Rin looked her way. Are you two, here together? At Haruna's indirect "Are you on a date?" question, both Naruto and Rin's faces became as red as Haruna's as they quickly turned into a ranting mess trying to say that it's a misunderstanding. I tried this on. How is it, Naruto? Does it look good on me? Lala cheerfully asked as she happily pulled back the curtain to show of the matching purple BR and panties set with small red ribbons on them. When everyone simply stared at her with their faces still red from embarrassment, Lala briefly wondered what they were doing when her sight landed on her classmate. Huh? It's you, Haruna. I don't know if this helps, or is just making things more awkward, Naruto thought to himself in response to the Pinkett. Aquarium. Wow, it's so pretty. There are a lot of fish here, Lala cheered as she joyfully skipped along the hall in the outfit Mikan and Riko picked up for her and the stuffed rabbit Naruto won her held in her left arm. That kinda comes with the whole aquarium thing, Naruto tells her with a small smirk. Ah. Look at that, Lala said as she took off, ignoring Naruto in her excitement. Lala, don't get too excited, you might get lost, Mikan warned the Pinkett before she got too far. Look! This is huge, Haruna. Lala called back after spotting a really big fish. Fufu, she's like a child, Haruna commented with a happy expression. Yeah, I've noticed, Naruto added as he stood next to his crush. Sorry if she forced you to come with us, Naruto told the girl as he turned his head to look at her. Ah, it's okay. I like this kind of place, Haruna reassured him, slightly surprised by the sudden apology. Is that so? Well, that's good. Naruto responded with the faintest hint of a blush as he stored that information somewhere in the back of his mind. I'm sorry too, Haruna said after a moment of silence between the two of them, surprising Naruto this time. Am I interrupting the two of you, Uzumaki? Haruna asked before taking a quick glance at Rin as the girl stood with Mikan and Riko a short distance away before slowly adding, or dash. Before she could ask which of the two it is, Naruto interrupts her. YUV got it wrong. We just all came out together. That's all. Naruto panicked, afraid Haruna would get the wrong impression of him. Really? Haruna asked after a small pause. After getting a yes from Naruto, that's good to hear, Haruna said with her hand over her heart as she looked down and off to the side with a content expression. Hey Riko, Mikan whispered as she pulled her elder sister down and a step or two away from Rin. That girl, is she the one Naruto dash, Mikan was asking when Riko picked up on it. Has a huge crush on. He's the one-inch, Riko whispered back. Think we should give them some alone time, the orange-haired girl asked with a grin. With a nod Mikan let her sister go. Seeing a good opportunity in the form of Lala running off to look at the penguins, and after telling the others she'd keep an eye on her, ran off with Peek in her arms. Hey, Kuju-senpai, let's go check out the fish over there, Riko told the older girl as she takes hold of her, much to the girl's surprise at the sudden move as she stumbles a bit at first. Huh? Naruto questions as he repeatedly looks back and forth between the locations the rest of the group suddenly left to. The hell? How are me and Haruna alone all of a sudden? Naruto tries to reason with cheeks faintly turning red. Ha, guess it's just us now, Naruto nervously says as he turns back to the purple-haired girl. This is so awkward, Naruto can't help but think after a moment of just standing there with her. So, what do you want to see? I'm sure there are plenty of dash, Naruto was saying to break the silence as he turned to start walking when he felt his sleeve being pulled on. Haruna? Naruto hesitantly asks after looking over his shoulder to see a distant look on the girl's face. I am sorry. Haruna apologized after snapping out of it and quickly letting go of his sleeve. I have something I really want to say to you, Haruna told him, still a bit panicked. I mean, about the other day, Haruna said, a lot calmer. The other day? Naruto asked. The only thing he could imagine it would be about would involve her being kidnapped, but she shouldn't remember any of it. Lala told me, after I collapsed, you found me and brought me to the nurse's office, right Uzumaki? I've been meaning to thank you, but I've never had the chance to. So thank you, Uzumaki, Haruna told him, a happy look covering her face as his cheeks reddened slightly, a red that only deepened when she felt his hand on her shoulder. You don't have to worry about it so much, Naruto told her with a warm smile that caused blush on her cheeks to spread to the rest of her face and a, though it is nice to hear, thrown in briefly at the end. Naruto was about to say something else to the girl, seeing as they finally had a chance to talk with each other, when a black and white blur slammed into the side of his head. Wha? The blonde questioned as he fell to the ground with dozens of flightless birds flying around the room like rockets. What's going on? Rin asked in disbelief as she and Riko watched the chaos unfold. I'm not sure, but I think Lala has something to do with it, Riko told her with a worried expression as the two of them watched from a distance as Naruto had to reprimand Lala for whatever it was she did. Stopping in front of the class, their homeroom teacher began to make a small announcement. It's somewhat sudden, but we have a new transfer student, the old man told them as he adjusted his glasses. A transfer student? Risa asked aloud. It's rare to have another one after we just had Lala, Mio, a girl sitting in front of Risa with brown hair pulled into pigtails and glasses, commented. This is Ren Elsie Juelria. Everyone, be nice to him, the teacher told them as a boy with hot pink eyes and dual-colored hair with the top being white with a slight ting of blue and the bottom being black. Much in the same way that Lala showing up got a noticeable reaction to the majority of boys in class, Ren's entrance got a rise from the girls. After briefly scanning the room from the front of the class, Ren had rushed over to Lala's side before anyone had taken notice of his actions. I finally found you, Lala. My bride, the teen said as he took Lala's hands into his own, getting a shocked reaction from most of the class and a few confused blinks from Naruto as he'd just been spacing out since he got to class earlier that morning. My dear, I recognized you at first sight. The way you shine cannot be hidden even in a big crowd, Ren continues to say. You were so appealing when you were playing in the palace garden. Your smile shed light into my heart just like the sun. And now, your dazzling shine is even more appealing after all these years. You really are a goddess, the salt and pepper-haired boy says as he takes a pose to match the overly dramatized way he was speaking. Has Lala ever mentioned someone like him before? Riko asks her blonde brother as she leans over to him, a perplexed look on her face. Not that I can think of, Naruto tells her as he watches the transfer student. What's his name? The blonde asks the girl, only to be welcomed with a disapproving look when he turned to look at her. You were daydreaming in class again, weren't you? Riko questioned him. Class hadn't even started yet. Naruto said in his own defense. Once again a heartfelt meeting. Ren proclaimed as he once more took hold of Lala's hands. I'm glad I came all the way to this remote region. Now Lala. Let's share this joy. Ren excitedly said to his pink-haired crush. Who are you? Lala asked, instantly crushing the boy. Harsh, Naruto thought as his heart went out to the boy who obviously just took a huge hit to his heart. He's sure Lala didn't mean anything by her question, but it still brought back memories of the countless times he himself was turned down by his crush. Well, it's okay. I won't be discouraged by this, Ren said as he quickly recovered and got back up. Because, I'm a man. Ren said with resolve. By the way Lala, Ren started, getting the Pinket's attention. I heard about it. They say you're being fooled by an evil man, Ren said, getting an annoyed look from Naruto. That's right. It's you, Naruto Uzumaki, the boy dramatically said as he pointed his finger at a now confused teacher. I'm over here, Naruto told him before he could figure out his mistake for himself, the annoyed look still in place. Yes. Of course. Ren said as he switched to pointing at the blonde. Calming down, Ren reached into his shirt as he began to speak again. Let me tell you about the relationship Lala and I once had. Look at this, the boy happily said as he pulled out a photo of him and Lala as children and handing it over to Naruto. This is me when I was little. Lala commented as she looked over the blonde's shoulder. Why are you in a dress? Naruto asked, recognizing the other kid as Ren due to the unique hair he has. I remember you now. You're crybaby Ren. Lala said as the memories came to the forefront of her mind. Thank you for remembering me, Ren told her as he began to recall some of the times they had spent together. Yes, Lala teased me and dressed me up saying I looked like a girl. She tested her inventions on me almost every day. Lala was really a naughty little angel, Ren said, fondly remembering those times. But Lala promised me that if I became manly then she and I would marry. Ren told them. Do you understand how deep our relationship is now? Ren proudly asked Naruto as Lala and Peak has a quiet conversation to themselves as to whether she had actually promised Ren that. Lala, I'm not asking for an immediate answer. I want you to look at how manly I've grown as a classmate, and you'll eventually realize who is really suitable to be your marriage partner, Ren told Lala. Can I start the lecture now? The teacher asked, taken aback by this whole conversation, much like most of the students. Please go ahead. Ren replied to the man. At least we have guy next, Naruto commented to himself as he walked down the hall. The teacher wouldn't have called on me if Ren hadn't insisted on answering every question before me, the blonde complained as he tried to forget about pitifully stumbling around for an answer to that DMN question. I'll get to class before you do. Ren shouted as he bolted past Naruto, leaving the teen standing there as he watched the dual-haired boy run off down the hall. After standing there for a moment a smirk grew on Naruto's blank expression, so that's how it's going to be, huh? Gym. With the boys lined up for the 100-meter dash the teacher lifted the starting gun into the air and fired off a blank to start them off. Taking off at full speed and confidence Ren took off down the track. His determined expression turned to one of shock however as Naruto effortlessly passed him by at the halfway point. Come on Ren, is that really as fast as you can go? Naruto cheekily taunted as he looked over his shoulder at the teen before taking off for the finish line. Meanwhile Ren was furiously trying to catch up with him. Lunch break, classroom. I don't think I've ever seen someone eat so much, Risa said in disbelief as she watched Ren and Naruto shoving the pile of food they had on the desk down their throats. Next to her Mio nodded dumbly along and sitting at her seat with a sigh and shake of her head was Riko. I'm not going to lose to you, Uzumaki. Ren defiantly told the blonde, even though it sounded like a garbled mess due to having his mouth full. Even though he said this though it wasn't long before his face turned an interesting shade of green and he had to run for the trash can. Ha! Another win for me. Naruto triumphantly said after swallowing his food and standing up with his arms in the air. You're going to make yourself sick if you eat like that, Riko offhandedly reprimanded the blonde while pointing over to where Ren was busy emptying out all the food he just ate. Ah, you know I can handle way more than this, Naruto told her with a small wave when the door slid open. Oh, looks like your girlfriend's come to pick you up, Risa teased with a smirk as Yui made her way over to Naruto, and getting a glare and small blush from the girl in the process. I won't stand for such shameless conversation, Yui told the blonde girl, even if Risa merely waved off the remark. Come on, I need some help, Yui said as she turned back to Naruto and took hold of his wrist. Without any resistance at all Naruto simply let her drag him with her, it's a lot easier to just say yes in this situation. Don't go making Riko an ant now you too. Risa called out to them before they left the room. A ant. Yui yelped out as her face instantly turned bright red. Ho how shameless, the public morals president called out at the implications of Risa's remark. She probably would have marched back into the room to heavily reprimand the giggling girl if it weren't for Naruto pushing her down the hall and away from the classroom. Who was that? Ren wondered after watching the pair leave. Later in the day. Where are you going next? Ren asked Naruto as he followed him closely down the hall. The bathroom, Naruto bluntly told him. Fine. Then I'll go ahead and dash, Ren was saying when Naruto turned around to interrupt him. I am not going to literally have a pissing contest with you, Naruto told him so that he wouldn't get the idea in his head. I take that to mean you forfeit, the teen questioned with a smirk. With an annoyed look and small twitch Naruto told him, yes, I forfeit, happy. Who was that showed up during lunch? Ren asked after a moment, his expression now rather serious. Huh? Naruto questioned as he thought back to lunch. Oh. You mean Yui? She's from the other class, Naruto told him as he once again turned back to the boy. Why'd you want to know? The blonde asked. Why? Ren asked with a glare starting to form. You're my beloved Lala's leading fiancé candidate and you're off running around with another girl. Ren told the blonde as he reached out to grab hold of his shirt. Grabbing Ren's wrist before his hand could reach him Naruto could feel his annoyance with the teen building back up again as he tried to pull his hand out of Naruto's hold. Will you stop talking like I agreed to marry Lala? It's getting annoying real fast, Naruto told the boy and was quickly met with a look of shock and confusion from Ren. Letting go of Ren's arm Naruto was about to wave a hand in front of his face to see if he was still aware of anything around him when the boy shook himself out of his shock. What do you mean you didn't agree to marry Lala? Ren shouted, getting in Naruto's face. Clearly you've been romancing her. How else would she be so infatuated with you? Ren demanded to know. Calm down, would you? Naruto said with an annoyed expression as he shoved Ren's face away from him. I got dragged into this whole mess after she ended up in my house while running away from home. Naruto briefly explained the complicated situation he's in. If you don't want to marry her, then why are you getting in my way? Ren asked, getting back into Naruto's face. You dumb butt. It's not that easy. Besides, it's nice to have someone to compete with even if it's over something like this. Naruto yelled back at the boy, moving in closer this time rather than pushing him away as sharks practically shot out between them. I don't need a rival. And what do you mean, something like this? Are you making fun of Lala's affection? Ren shot back, returning the blonde's glare as their foreheads pushed against one another. What are you going on about? Lala's the one that decides who she'll marry, you dumb AMMPH. Naruto was arguing when his foot slipped out from under him, sending him into Ren as their eyes widened in horror. Not again, not again, not again. Naruto was yelling in his mind as he grabbed hold of Ren's shoulders and pushed himself away from the boy, the feeling of their lips pressed against each other still lingering no matter how badly he wanted it to go away. WWH, what the hell, Uzumaki? Ren shouted at the boy after spitting a few times in disgust. Don't say anything. This never happened. Naruto yelled back at him in between trying to rub the sensation off his lips with his arm. Okay, I'll be going. See you guys later, Naruto called out to the rest of the house as he finished getting his shoes on. Where are you going, Naruto? A very curious Lala asked as she walked up behind him. Dad wants me to help with work again, Naruto told her as he opened the front door. He usually asks me to stop by when he's behind schedule, and I usually agree if I don't have any training to get through, Naruto told her before throwing in at the end, besides, Riko would just end up doing it if I didn't. I see, Lala commented before adding after a brief pause, what does Naruto Papa do? Naruto looked back at the pinkett after she asked that. I guess you haven't met Daddy, have you? The blonde stated more than asked. With a smile appearing on his face he then asked, you want to come with me? Hey! Welcome, Naruto, a man with long messy black hair, golden brown eyes, and wearing a red headband that had Big Hall written on it with strands of his hair covering parts of the band yanked open the apartment door after Naruto had rung the bell. We don't have time. Come on in, the man told him before his eyes widened at the sight of the pink-haired girl standing next to Naruto. Nice to meet you, Naruto Papa. Lala cheered before she started to zoom about, looking the man over from head to toe. This is Naruto Papa, huh? You don't look like Naruto so much, Lala commented. Well, yeah. Adopted, remember? Naruto said with a look that said, it should be obvious to the excited pinkett who, probably, heard what he just said. Naruto, what's going on? Naruto's father asked as he stared at the pink-haired alien. This is Lala, I'm sure Mikan's mentioned her before, right? Naruto told his old man. Idiot. You should have told me ahead of time. I would have had time to prepare. Saibai playfully told the blonde before turning his attention to Lala. Nice to meet you, too. I'm Naruto Papa, the man introduced himself. An alien is staying at our house. The world is becoming more and more universal. Saibai joked as he led the two into the apartment. Wah, it's really dirty, Lala commented as she saw the floor littered with reference material, discarded rough drafts that didn't quite make it to the final product, and crumpled up pieces of paper that didn't stay in the nearly overflowing trash bins. Yep. It's a dirty workplace, but go ahead and look around as you please. Saibai told the girl as Peak reprimanded her for making a rude remark. She's a cute girl. I envy you, Naruto, Saibai said to Naruto as Lala explored the apartment turned into a manga creator's workplace. What are you talking about? Naruto said in an almost disinterested tone as he tied his own headband around his forehead, an orange one with fierce spirit written on it. Don't pretend to be innocent. I heard from Mikon that you two sleep together every night, the man said as he leaned in to whisper to the teen. Man, being young is so nice, Saibai said in a goofy manner as he pulled back from Naruto. Yeah. Well, I hope you aren't expecting any grandkids for a while. No matter how many times Lala sneaks into my bed, she's way too innocent to do something like that, Naruto playfully retorted as he formed a cross-shaped hand sign. As long as you take responsibility, the man said as 2 more Narutos popped into existence next to the original. Now let's get to work. Naruto, start inking those pages, the manga MSTR excitedly said as the Narutos took their seats as the 3 empty desks opposite from the 3 full-time assistants Saibai had. Naruto Papa, do you want me to help too? Lala asked while looking over Saibai's shoulder after some time had pasted. Oh, Lala. Thank you for your offer, but can you draw pictures? The man asked as he briefly stopped what he was doing to look up at the girl. After making a quick sketch. Te-da. Yes, I can. Look. It's Naruto, Lala happily cheered as she held up a drawing that could barely be recognized as a person let alone Naruto, and causing Saibai to laugh so hard he started crying. Huh? Is it not good? Lala asked as she looked at the picture with a confused expression. Let's just say you need practice and leave it at that, one of the Narutos commented as he leaned back in his chair while looking at the pinket. Is that so? Lala asked, seeming to accept the fact rather well. Taking another glance at the trio of blondes, Lala couldn't help but ask, why don't you make more clones if more people makes work go faster? Naruto looked a bit surprised by the question as he put the chair back on all 4 legs. I'd make more clones and I could, but there really isn't a whole lot of room for more in Dad's apartment. That, and I can't draw at the level that Dad needs for his manga, so I'm usually in charge of inking whenever I help out. So I can't work any faster than everyone else, the blonde explained to the girl. Though with how quickly Dad works we could probably make another 20 clones and still have pages coming in quicker than we can finish, another Naruto joked as he looked over at Saibai whose hands were but a blur as he worked. Lala, since you can't do anything to help right now, why don't you check out the other room? It's full of books Dad uses for references. I'm sure you'll find 1 or 2 in there that you'll like, the last Naruto suggested to the girl, who happily agreed to do just that. This looks fun. I can probably learn anything about the earth from here, Lala happily said as she skimmed through one of the many books stored in the room. Lady Lala, can you read them? Peek asked, seeing as none of these books were written in Devolukian. Yup. I've learned most Earthling letters. It's the planet Naruto lives on, so I need to learn more stuff about Earth, Lala tells Peek. Yuaya. I can't take it anymore. The sound of one of the assistants from the other room shouting quickly diverts Lala's attention away from the book in her hands. Idiot. If you have time to whine, speed up. Saibai told the assistant as Lala poked her head into the room. Naruto, what's going on? Lala asked the blonde as she stood in the doorway. Oh, Lala. Things aren't going so well right now, one Naruto told her as he turned slightly to look at the girl. Everyone's getting upset because they can't keep pace with Dad and the deadline is in a few hours, the blonde explained. The deadline is midnight tonight, but it'll take another 6 hours to finish with our current pace. Losing 4 hours, it's pretty bad, Saibai said with a serious expression as he looked at the clock. We had other work to do this time too, one assistant remarks to another. SHT, if only we could work at the same pace as Sensei, the other assistant said as Lala overheard them. I'm not sure I completely get it, but if your hands move faster, will it be better? Lala asked one of the assistants. HRM. Yeah, it will, but, the man told her as the Pinkett brought out her D-dial. After calling forth her almighty tool, Lala proceeded to make modifications to the chairs everyone was using. Where does she come up with these ideas? Naruto briefly wondered to himself as Lala fitted the chairs with robotic arms that slipped over the assistant's hands like gloves at the end. This is amazing. I can draw really fast, one assistant let out as his, and the other's hands became blurs as they sped through their work. Oh. Good job Lala. Saibai praised the girl as he observed the effect her modifications had. Yash, we can do this. Guys, let's put in our last spurt. Saibai joyfully and with determination shouted as he rushed back to his seat to continue working, his assistants giving a resounding "Roger," as they put in their best work. That's more like it. Naruto said with a grin as he turned back to his clones. We're not going to let them outdo us, are we? Let's pick up the pace. The blonde cheered as he hopped back into his chair with cheers from his clones, tightened his headband, picked up his pen, and began to ink the wave of incoming pages like there was no tomorrow. An hour later. And we're done. With time to spare too. Saibai joyfully declared as he organized the finished pages into a neat stack. The assistants who had used Lala's inventions sat at their desks completely drained from moving so fast. Oh, man. I think that's the fastest I've ever worked while helping you, Naruto commented as he stretched in his chair, the clones to either side of him dispersing now that they didn't need to be there. You have Lala to thank for working so hard. We never would have gotten done on time if not for her, the man cheerfully said. The next morning it was discovered that Lala's invention worked Saibai's assistants to the point of draining their longing to ever draw again. So, Lala had Zaston and his men help Saibai out instead. Omake, training partner. Yet another perfectly normal day at the Yuki household. Mikon was hanging the laundry up to dry, Riko was tending to the garden, and Naruto was practicing his techniques by fighting imaginary opponents. Lady Lala, what are you doing? Peek asked the Pinkett as she flew over to the spot on the small deck Lala was sitting. Just watching Naruto, Lala told the robot. She had wanted to see if Naruto wanted to do something with her but was told by Mikon that it was best to let him concentrate when he's training, and so she'd just been sitting there for the past 5 minutes. Turning to look at Naruto herself, Peek commented, I'm not sure what kind of technique Naruto uses but he's been training like this since he has a child, no? After a moment of though Peek added, I wonder if throwing punches and kicks into thin air is as good as having someone to spar with. At Peek's comment something clicked inside Lala's head as a bright expression crept its way across her face. That's it. I just thought of the perfect way to help Naruto. Lala cheered as she jumped up to her feet and turned to head inside. Thanks Peek. Lala said as she ran into the house, leaving a confused robot floating there. A bit of time later. Naruto, the sound of Lala calling out to him had the blonde stopping his kick midway and turning to see what she wanted, doing so caused him to nearly fall over at what she wanted to show him. Lala, what is that? Naruto blurted out as he regained his footing. Standing next to Lala was a robot slightly taller than himself. The machine had a white cylindrical body with the swirl design Lala's inventions typically had in the middle of its chest. Its head was a thinner black cylinder with round yellow eyes and 6-inch thick disc the same width of its body on top of its head. The legs and arms looked like metal sticks poking out of its sides with ball at its elbows and knees for joints, and while it hands relatively normal looking hands, its feet looked to simply be 2 white blocks. It's my newest invention. Pow Pow Trainer Kun. Lala cheerfully introduced the robot as said robot took a stance and threw a few punches for emphasis. Now you don't have to train by yourself, the Pinkett told him. I see, Naruto hesitantly said, staring at the device skeptically. And, you want me to fight it, right? Naruto asked, taking everything in. Yup. Let me show you what Pow Pow Trainer Kun can do. Go help Naruto Pow Pow Trainer Kun. Lala said as she gave the fighting machine a gentle nudge in Naruto's direction. Without further direction, the machine's eyes seemed to light up as it jumped high and came careening towards Naruto with its foot stretched out. Wah! Naruto hurriedly jumped out of the way as Pow Pow Trainer Kun landed in the spot he was just in. Well, I guess it is better than fighting someone that isn't there, Naruto thought to himself as he rushed to the robot who had already resumed a fighting stance. For every 3 or 4 strikes that Pow Pow Trainer Kun blocked, another would land a direct hit, and after a short time he found himself flat on the ground. Thanks for that, Lala, but maybe next time you can build one that can actually land a hit on me rather than trying to block everything I throw at it, Naruto said with a cheeky grin, his ego thoroughly inflated by the easy win. Did I really make it too easy? Lala wondered as she folded one arm beneath her bust and rubbed her chin with the other. I could have sworn I installed the universe's best martial arts styles into Pow Pow Trainer Kun. It should have been able to do better than that, Lala thought out loud. Well, you can't get it right the first time ever, Naruto was saying when a robotic leg slammed into his side, sending him flying across the yard. Skill level verified. Pow Pow Trainer Kun will not lose a second time, Pow Pow Trainer Kun said as it took a new pose. DMN, hung of metal, Naruto grumbled to himself as he got onto all fours while holding his side. Ah! Naruto, is this better? Lala asked from where she was when he got kicked. I really need to watch what I say, Naruto thought before he was forced to roll out of the way of another drop kick, this time leaving a hole in the ground where it landed. Hey! Don't tear up the yard, you bstrd. Naruto yelled at the robot as he rushed it again. This time for every 1 or 2 punches or kicks he sent at the thing he'd receive a brutal blow for his troubles. I think Lala's too good at this. Imagine if she tried to mass-produce something like this, Naruto thought as he jumped away from the robot, the bruises already forming on his body. You cannot defeat me. You do not possess the adequate skill to do so, the machine taunted Naruto, annoying and pissing the blonde off. You want skill? Well, I'll give you as much skill as you want. Naruto roared as he put his hands together to create a small army of clones. All talk, no action. Show me what you can do, Pow Pow Trainer Kun told him, unbothered at suddenly being in the middle of a sea of blondes. Half an hour later. This is why we don't let you and Jiraiya spare in the backyard, Mikan told Naruto, a frightening look on her face, as she stood in front of a torn-up and devastated backyard. Now I better see this all fixed by the time supper's done or you'll be going to bed hungry, the young brunette told him before heading inside to start cooking. Why must I assist with this? I was designed to fight, not build walls, a very battered and damaged Pow Pow Trainer Kun with dents, scratches, holes, and visible wires complained as he helped a comparably beaten and bruised Naruto rebuild the portion of wall that fell down when the blonde was thrown through it earlier. You helped cause all of this, so you're going to help fix it. If you keep complaining then I'll have Lala turn you into a toaster, you DMN hunk of scrap metal. Naruto yelled at the robot as he started hammering in the board said robot was holding in place. Stupid Mikan won't even let me use clones to do this, Naruto grumbled as he worked. Perhaps my audio receptors are damaged, but I believe I heard some complaining, Pow Pow Trainer Kun commented in a snarky tone. Officially Lala's worst invention, the blonde thought to himself. Morning Rico. Risa greeted the orange-haired girl as her, Lala, and Naruto walked through the school gate by popping up behind her and grpng her melons. Stop molesting my sister already, Naruto lazily told his fellow blonde as Rico struggled to get out of her grasp, a whimper or gasp here and there. Normally he'd try harder to get the girl away from Risa and Mio, but right now he just couldn't get his mind going at full speed. He had to stay up most of the night studying just to catch up with the rest of the class, and he could barely get himself dressed this morning because of it. Besides, she's a grown girl, she can handle herself. Naruto. Help me already, yeah, she's fine. While this was happening, a girl with hot pink eyes and light green hair was watching the sleep-deprived blonde with a happy expression from one of the second-floor windows. Homeroom. It's her again, the green-hair girl thought with an annoyed look as she stared at Yui from her desk. Momioka, you can't go around grpng other girls. It's shameless. Yui reprimanded the blonde girl who was sitting at her desk with a smirk the whole time. And you? Yui said, turning to Naruto, causing him to jump a little in surprise. You should have done something to stew up. Yui was saying when Risa's hand slipped under her arms and around her melons. Ma, don't you think it's a bit hypercritical to go around talking about shameless things like that with these beauties? Risa asked the girl as he rested her shin on Yui's shoulder. The size is 87, right? No. 88. Risa guessed her BRST size as her hands skillfully moved over every inch of her melons. That's none of your business. Now let me go. Yui called out as she squirmed in Risa's embrace with a massive blush spread across her cheeks. Risa, you know I'm too tired to deal with this right now. Could you just let her go, please? Naruto asked the blonde as he sat slumped over his desk. Well, I might consider it, if Risa began with a mischievous glint in her eye. You turn into a girl, the blonde MLSTR said with a grin. Yeah. We haven't seen your CC jutsu in forever. Mio added, loving her friend's suggestion. Absolutely not. Yui yelled out. Naruto isn't allowed to use such a shameless jutsu on school grounds. Yui said, directing her glare at Naruto as if he was to blame for this whole situation. Oh. So you've already seen Naruto's CC jutsu? Mio asked Yui with a playful expression. Did he use it while you two were alone? Did it excite you? Tell me all the dirty little details, would you? Risa whispered into Yui's ear, turning her into a stuttering, blushing mess in her arms. What's this CC jutsu you keep talking about? Lala asked from her seat as an equally confused, even if for slightly different reasons, Haruna stood next to her. It's something I made as a kid for pulling pranks, nothing to get excited about, Naruto said, trying to wave it off. Even if he'd never let anyone get away with insult his creation, he knew Lala would want to see it for herself, and that would just leave him open to Risa's SXL SLT. It's a technique that lets Naruto turn into a CC girl, hence the name, Mio told the Pinkett. Really? Lala excitedly asked before turning her attention to Naruto. Can I see it? Lala asked the blonde, who was mentally cursing Mio for increasing Lala's interest in the jutsu. Well, Naruto hesitated as he racked his brain for a way out of this. Oh. First PRD is going to start soon. You don't want Yui to be late now, do you? Naruto nervously said, turning to the blonde, who was still GRPNG Yui even if it had slowed down to just a squeeze here and there. No fun at all, Risa pouted as she let Yui go. The moment she was freed, Yui jumped away from the blonde girl while covering her chest. Shameless. Yui shouted with a face completely red from embarrassment and a little anger before bolting out the door headed for her own class. Save for another day, Naruto thought to himself before seeing Lala still staring at him expectantly, SHT. Having successfully delayed Lala long enough for class to start without him using the CC jutsu, Naruto quickly dashed out he door before she could ask to see it in between class. He's by himself. Now's my chance, the green-haired girl thought determinedly as she ran out of the class after him. A few corners later and she found herself quickly ducking behind one she had just turned. Who are those girls? The green-haired girl wondered as she peeked around the corner to observe what was happening. Naruto, it's been too long since we last talked, a girl with golden eyes and light gold hair that's lightly permed in the back with two spiral-shaped curls coming over her shoulders and two small buns tied with red ribbons on either side of her head, said to the blonde after having stopped him. To one side of her stood Rin and to the other stood a girl with long dark blue hair and purple eyes hidden behind her big round lensed glasses. Yeah, I guess we haven't, Naruto said a bit hesitantly. While Rin was one of his closest friends, he never seemed to have hit it off, and the same was with Saki and Aya, really only ever seeing them when they're with Rin. They tried fixing this once by inviting the two to a bad movie night, but the two of them ended up confused out of their minds by how he and Rin enjoyed watching those kinds of movies half the time and boarded the other half. How have you been lately? Naruto asked Saki, trying not to make this awkward. Oh. I'm glad you asked, Saki said with her hand held daintily in front of her mouth. As the queen of romance, I've been busying myself with helping Rin win over her love, the rich, blonde girl proudly boasted as Rin's cheeks instantly heated up at the girl's statement. Huh? Rin like someone? Naruto asked, surprised since he figured she'd let him know something like that. Then again, he hasn't talked about his crush on Haruna with her either, and her and Saki are a lot closer with each other. Just as Saki was about to say any more, she was thoroughly surprised to feel Rin pushing her down the hall. Rin. What are you doing? This is your chance, Saki told the girl, pushing her along with Aya quickly following behind them. Sorry Naruto, but we need to be going, Rin called back to the blonde as the trio went down the hall. Ah, okay. Naruto said, confused by Rin's actions. If you need any help with your crush, feel free to ask any time, Naruto called out to the girl after a shrug, only reviving the girl's blush before she could turn around a corner. With that over, Naruto simple continued on from where Saki had stopped him. Should I consider them rivals as well? The green-haired girl thought from her spot hiding behind the corner, a look of confusion etched across her face. What's wrong, Naruto? Tsuruyama asked his blonde friend as they made their way outside for gym. I don't know. It might be the lack of sleep making me paranoid, but I've been get the feeling I'm being watched all morning, Naruto said as he looked over his shoulder for anyone. Ah, I'm sure it's nothing you can't handle, Tsuruyama told him with a solid pat on the back. Now if we stand here any longer we'll be late for class, the teen said before taking off down the hall. I had to wait through another lesson, but I finally have another chance. I can't let this opportunity pass me by, the green-haired girl thought to herself as she watched her blonde crush from another corner. Hey! What are you doing over there? A voice coming from behind her startled the girl. Turning around revealed it to be the unfamiliar face of Motomitsu. If you got a problem, I'll always be here for you, the older teen proclaimed with a thumbs up and a smile that seemed to shine briefly while his usual group of classmates stood behind him cheering him on. Motomitsu was surprised when the girl turned around, since for the live of him he couldn't place a name on such a cute girl. As such, he quickly reached into his shirt and yanked out a notebook he used to catalog all the cute and appealing girls in the school. As he was busy failing to find her in his notebook, the girl took off in the direction she had seen Naruto heading. A fact Motomitsu wouldn't notice until he jerked his head up to ask her out. Geez. Thanks to that weird person I lost track of Naruto, the girl complained as she ran through the hall. Naruto. We're counting on you, one of Naruto's classmates called out as he passed the soccer ball to the blonde. Got it. Naruto called back as the ball came his way. Sleep be damned. I'm not going to miss this. Naruto confidently told himself as he sent his foot towards the ball at full speed, and then had it go flying in the complete opposite direction, son of a. Look out. Naruto heard Tsuruyama yell as he looked just in time to see the rouge ball slam into some green-haired girl's head. Ah. Are you okay? Naruto called out as the girl landed HRD on the ground. SHT, SHT, SHT. I'm such an idiot, the blonde mentally berated himself as he ran over to the girl. Infirmary. Groaning slightly, the girl slowly started to open her eyes. Before she had the chance to wonder what the hell was in that ball that hit her, she noticed a familiar blonde looking down at her happily. Ah. You're awake. Naruto happily said after seeing her looking at him. I hope it doesn't hurt too badly. You took a pretty hard hit to the head. Sorry about that, Naruto nervously told her as he rubbed the back of his head as the girl sat up on the bed she'd been resting in. Makoto-sensei isn't here right now, but she left me in charge should you wake up. So, Naruto was telling her when he noticed she was staring at him. Naruto was about to ask if something was wrong when the girl threw herself at him. Naruto, the girl joyfully cheered as she wrapped her arms around the blonde. What are you doing? Naruto let out as he slipped out of the girl's embrace, leaving her kneeling on the bed. I'm so happy. The two of us are finally alone, the girl cheered. I have been watching you for a while now. I've been meaning to tell you my feelings, but I never got the chance, the girl said, moving into a sitting position as she brought her hands up to her chin. Feelings? What do you mean? Naruto asked, nearly stuttering as his cheeks flushed red. Oh God, is this a confession? What the hell am I supposed to do in this situation? Naruto began to mentally panic. I love you. Please go out with me, the girl told Naruto after lowering her hands to her lap. It is a confession. Naruto mentally shouted as his body froze up. What should I do? I could agree to take out on a date, but what about Haruna? And I can't even begin to guess what's going to happen with me and Lala if I do. Naruto began to think to himself, wondering how pissed off Lala's father would get if he actually started going out with someone that wasn't Lala. Would he really destroy the world over something like that? The blonde asked himself. Not to mention that DMNHRM some people are trying to cram me into, Naruto thought with annoyance before an image of him walking down the street with Lala and this girl in his arms popped into his mind. The hell am I thinking? The blonde mentally shouted as she shook his head. I get it. There is someone else you like besides me, the girl said as she looked down slightly, breaking Naruto out of his thoughts. But I can never forget that kiss I shared with you, Naruto, the girl softly said as she lightly brushed a few fingers against her lips. Kiss. But the only 2 kisses I've ever had were with, N.O. Those never happened, so there's nothing to remember. Naruto thought as he grew extremely flustered by the girl's statement. When did we kiss? Naruto blurted out as he took a small step back from the girl. You don't remember? The girl asked as she slipped off the bed. That's right. Perhaps all is not lost, she said as she took a few steps towards the blonde. Leaning into his chest and looking up into his frantic eyes, she told him, maybe another would, before trailing off as she made a small circle on his chest with her finger. Frozen to the spot, Naruto found himself unable to do anything as the girl wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned up, bringing their lips closer. Don't move, Naruto, the girl gently said as she stared into his blue eyes. Naruto. Tsuruyama said you'd be here. Lala said as she slid open the door and stepped inside, only to notice the girl about to kiss Naruto. Huh? That kid, run. Lala asked, recognizing the girl. Wait. You know this girl? Naruto asked as he turned his head to look at the pinkett in an even more panicked state. This however caused his hair to brush up against Run's nose, leading to her sneezing. After being enveloped in a cloud of pink-tinged smoke, Naruto ended up standing there with a dumbfounded look as Ren now stood in front of him with his arms slightly around his neck and in a schoolgirl outfit. Before the stunned Ren could make any remarks, Naruto had managed to place his foot on the dual-haired teen's stomach and gave a good, hard shove, sending him tumbling over the bed behind him and slamming his head on the floor on the other side. The hell is wrong with you, Ren? Naruto yelled at the boy as he felt the memories from last week, which he had tried so hard to repress, rising back up to the surface. Later. I see, Ren is the descendant of the royalty of planet Mamors, Mikado said as she sat in her chair with a cup of tea in her hand. And, that means? Naruto asked as he leaned up against the wall with his arms crossed. The ability to change gender, Mikado told the blonde, seeing a bit of understanding in his eyes after saying that. It's an ability unique to those from Mamors. On a specific cue, their mind and body both completely change gender, Mikado explained to the blonde. Turning to look at Ren, she then added, even so, the power of a sneeze normally wouldn't be sufficient to change you. The ability must have grown stronger on Earth due to differences in environment and magnetic field from your home planet, Mikado theorized. Yeah, I even got into a girl's uniform before coming to school. Run, I wish you'd have some consideration for my feelings too, Ren said with a few tears forming in the corners of his eyes as he tried his best to pull his skirt down to cover his legs. Uzumaki. I won't forgive you for stealing not only Lala's heart, but Run's as well. Ren nearly yelled through gritted teeth as he sent a glare at the blonde. What are you going on about this time? That event was a complete accident. Remember, Naruto shot back at the teen as he returned the glare. Ren, Lala called out to the boy before the two could get any further into their argument. So you only change when you sneeze. Bring Ren out, and then we'll have Naruto turn into a girl too. Lala cheered as she started chasing Ren around the room with a bottle of pepper. But I just changed. Wait. What did you just say about Uzumaki? Ren yelled out as he ran away from the pinkett. Maybe I should start carrying pepper with me for whenever Ren gets annoying, Naruto mentally said to himself as he thought about the girl that nearly stole his first kiss. We're finally here. Mio cheered as the students made their way off the buses they'd been on for the last 3 hours. I know, it took so long I thought my legs were going to fall asleep on me, Risa commented as she got off behind her friend while stretching out her arms. If you think the ride was bad then you should try running the distance, Naruto said, having overheard the two. Funny. As if anyone could run from Sinan all the way out here, Risa responded to the blonde playfully. Naruto's serious expression however had her gasp in surprise. Wait. You aren't seriously saying you ran the whole way? Risa blurted out. Sure, she knew he was stronger, faster, and overall more physically capable than anyone else in the world, but she didn't know he could run that far. Ero-sanin dragged me out here last year for training. Neither of us have a driver's license, so running was really the only option at the time, Naruto tells her and Mio as the students file into the large traditional-style 2-story Seaside, and they'd come all this way for their Seaside summer school. Though the pervert just ended up spying on the women's bath the whole time and we didn't get any training done because of it, Naruto grumbled, visible annoyed by the whole ordeal. Sounds rough, but exactly like Jiraiya, Risa tells him with a smirk. Hello, everyone from Sinan High. Thank you for traveling a long way to come here. The inn's owner, a woman with black hair pulled into a bun in the back with a few strands hanging around her ears and forehead and wearing a light blue yukata, greeted the students with a bow as they entered the building. Behind the woman were several of the inn's staff in light moron yukatas bowing with her. Takamai. I wanted to see you, the principal cheered as he ran up to the owner with his arms held out. The woman's fist landing directly in the center of his face quickly stopped him in his tracks however. You are so cold-hearted, Takami, the man said as he knelt on the ground with a bloody nose. Ha ha ha. You're too forceful, Jiraiya told the principal after walking up to the downed man. You need to be more approachable and charismatic, Jiraiya told the man before receiving a quick but painful jab to his ribs. Welcome back, Jiraiya. I wasn't expecting you to show up with the students, Takami greeted the man while holding up the hand she hit him with. Looking out over the students, she quickly found the head of spiky blonde hair she'd come to associate this man with. Naruto, could you please keep your sensei under control this time? I don't want a repeat of last year, Takami called out to the blonde, getting a few of the students to look at him oddly. With a sigh, Naruto told her, I'll do my best. Seaside summer school for the next 3 days. Guys, please get in touch with nature, and make lots of fun memories, the principal, now totally recovered from the punch earlier, began as everyone was seated in the main hall. Anyway, we will have a dare tonight. Please look forward to it, the principal said while jumping around rather well for someone of his build. After finishing his small speech, the man then jumped at Takami again, this time with a kissy face while saying, right, Takami. The man received a decisive uppercut to the chin for his effort. Later in the day. Now, why don't we take a bath? Tsuruyama suggested as he, Naruto, and the two boys they were put in a room with lounged around the room in the blue yukata they were given. Yeah, I could probably use a nice long bath right now, Naruto admits as he lay on his back staring up at the ceiling while one leg was propped up on the other. Earlier the blonde had taken the first chance he got to sneak away from the crowd to do some training in the woods. It wasn't anything serious like decimating boulders with countless rasengans or anything like that, but the blonde still worked up a sweat out there. The girls are probably taking a bath now too, Tsuruyama added, a perverted look on his face. We should do it as men, don't you think? One of the teens said, sharing Tsuruyama's mentality. What are you two planning? Naruto asked as he stood up to head for the open-air bath. Peeking, of course, the two answered in unison. With a shake of his head, Naruto told them, don't blame me when Takami catches you, before leaving the room. At least they'll make some unforgettable memoirs if they get caught, Naruto thought with a smirk as he walked down the hall. Uzumaki, Naruto hears his name being called out as he's about to leave the changing room. Turning around reveals it to be Ren standing there with a towel around his waist. Hey Ren, enjoying the trip so far? Naruto casually asked, trying to ignore the slight glare the dual-haired teen was giving him. It's been fine so far, Ren reluctantly answers as he moves past Naruto, headed for the water. Oh, would you just lighten up already? Naruto tells the boy with a pat on the back that nearly made Ren lose his footing on the wet stone floor as he flailed his arms to stay balanced. We don't have to be at each other's throats every time we run into each other, Naruto told him as he made his way to the water and proceed to slip in. Fine. If you insist, then I'll try to get along with you. For now, Ren relented with a sigh as he too got in the water. 9 minutes later. No way. She really turned your hair pink and bright green for nearly a year. Naruto said, trying his best not to laugh himself to death as the two of them relaxed in the hot spring and telling each other stories from their childhood. Yeah, Lala's invention even affected my roots, so trying to grow my hair out didn't work, Ren told him with a smile as he leaned up against the side of the bath. Man, I wish I had met you two back then, the blonde says with a wide grin directed at his rival/friend. I don't. You would have just ended up helping her torment me, Ren tells the blonde with a slight glare, even if his smile betrayed him. Exactly. How could I possibly pass that up? Naruto tells him with a friendly elbow jab to the side. Yeah well Ren was saying when he suddenly stopped. Naruto was about to ask what was going on when Ren's growing sneeze became visible in the boy's face. Ah achoo, and with that the boy became shrouded in a cloud of smoke that would quickly disperse, leaving a rather naked Ren sitting in the men's bath. Shit. Naruto chanted in his head as he racked his mind for a solution to the girl's problem. Taking the first thought that came to mind and running with it, Naruto quickly reached over, picked the now surprised Ren up, and jumped out of the water quick enough that anyone looking over at them would have said they simply vanished. You don't know what a dare is, Lala? Mio asked Lala as she looked up as the pinkett sitting on a rock. Oh. Yeah, you were born in a foreign country, Mio remembered the little white lie that was told to anyone that didn't know Lala was an alien princess. Yup. What is dare anyway? Lala asked, excited to know what it was as Risa and Haruna got into the water. Dare is, Mio began as she thought how best to explain it. Well, in a nutshell, it's a game where a girl and boy pair up and walk to the goal on a dark road at night, Mio explained to the pinkett. Walking at night is so easy, Lala said, not sure why this is so special. But it doesn't work that way. Mio responded. There will be ghosts that block your way and put Mio was saying when Risa finished it. Curses on you, Risa said in a creepy voice right behind Haruna, sending a chill down the purple-haired girl's back. Of course, that'll be done by people who play ghosts, Risa added, instantly changing her creepy voice into a cheerful and upbeat one, even if Haruna was now covering her chest while watching the blonde over her shoulder now. Out of the way, the girls heard just before something landed in the water next to them, splashing water everywhere. Up on the rocks above the spring, Tsuruyama and his cohort were busy picking themselves up after a yellow and green blur has pushed them aside. What was that? Haruna asked just before Ren popped her head out of the water and started coughing due to the sudden dive. Huh? But wasn't that Uzumaki's voice just now? Haruna wondered as her and the others started at the green-haired girl. Ah! Run! Lala happily cheered as she bounded over to the green-haired girl and embraced her. La. Run let out in surprise as the pinkett hugged her. What happened to Naruto? Run asked, getting confused looks from most of the others. I just need to slip out while no one's paying too much attention, Naruto thought to himself as he slowly poked his head out of the water to just below his eyes at the edge of the spring so that he could look around, long golden hair leading back into the water. You're not getting away this time, Risa's voice came from directly behind the blonde, sending a shiver down his spine as he could tell without even looking that she was up to her usual mischief. With lightning fast movements, Risa's hands shot out into the water while Naruto was still surprised, latching onto their intended targets. Oh, it's been too long since I was able to do this. You really should use this form more often, Risa teased Naruto as she groped Naruto's CC just as BRST with one hand while the other roamed over the perfectly crafted curves of his body. Risa! Naruto yelped as he found himself being assaulted by his fellow blonde. Stop! Let me go! Naruto panicked as he tried to get some a good hold of the wet, slippery stones to help pull himself out of Risa's hold. The whole time Risa was yanking cute moans and gasps from the girl in her arms. Naruto. I didn't know you were going to bath with us. Lala happily said as Run and Haruna looked on in shock from either side of the picket. Run for seeing her beloved Naruto receiving Risa's slightly more aggressive than normal teasing, and Haruna for seeing Naruto as a girl. Some time later. You're evil. You know that? Naruto told Risa as he leaned over the edge of the spring staring at the wall with his head resting on his arms. Lala sat next to him as she ran her fingers through the long golden locks of hair fanned out in the water behind Naruto. To the other side Run sat just within an arm's length from the blonde, a faint blush on her cheeks as she'd every few seconds or so glance over at the blonde trying to figure out what to do with him like this. Well, maybe you shouldn't stop me from having fun for so long, Risa playfully said as she turned her head to the side with a mock pout. Hey, maybe the two of you will end up as a pair for the dare and end up becoming a couple after you make it to the goal. Mio said, getting everyone else's attention. Really? We'd end up a couple if we reached the goal? Risa asked, already interested in this. Is that really how it works? Haruna asked, briefly picturing the two blondes as a couple before shaking it out of her head with a blush. Yup. It's the dare jinx. Whichever courageous pair makes it to the goal in the Seaside Summer School's dare will surely become a couple. Many people became couples because of this in previous years. Mio told the group. You hear that, Naruto? If we get paired up we'll become the most talked about couple in the school, Risa teased as she called out to the blonde. Then if I get paired up with you I'll just stand at the starting line all night, Naruto told her with a smirk as he just let his body relax in the warm water with closed eyes. Meanie, Risa shot back at him with another mock pout. Dare sounds fun. I'm so looking forward to it, Lala joyfully said as she took a brief pause from combing her fingers through Naruto's hair. Dare, huh? Haruna thought as she stared at Naruto absent-mindedly. I have to make it to the goal with Naruto no matter what. I won't lose to Lala or anyone else. Run thought with nothing but sheer determination as she eyed up her pink-haired rival. Meanwhile. How the hell is the brat that lucky? Jiraiya shouted to himself from his vantage point at the top of a distant tree, telescope in hand and full of envy and pride for the boy right now. 13, huh? I wonder who I'll be paired with, Naruto wondered to himself as he looked at the slip of paper he pulled out of the box. Naruto didn't have to wait long before receiving an answer, as it would seem. Ah, Naruto, you're 13. Yay, me too, a chipper voice said from behind the blonde. Turning to see the pinkett with peak sticking out of her yukata, a piece of paper with 13 on it held up in her left hand, and her normally free hair pulled up behind her, Naruto had to stop himself from contemplating whether or not the universe was trying to tell him something. After the first couple of pairs had started. All we got to do is walk down this path until we reach the shrine. Then we can all call it a night. Nothing to worry about, Naruto thought to himself as he watched the next pair pass through the Torii 8 that they were using as the starting line. Standing there with Naruto, Lala found it a bit odd when she noticed the blonde's hand shaking a little. Naruto? Lala as she looked at the blonde's face. Is something wrong? You're shaking, the pinkett asked. Naruto jumped a little at her question, having not noticed he was shaking in the first place. Ha ha ha. No, nothing's wrong. I am just really excited is all. Naruto rushed for a somewhat believable excuse her as he nervously rubbed the back of his. Me too. Lala cheered, buying it completely, a big smile on her face. I wonder what kind of spooky ghosts are going to be waiting for us. Lala excitedly continued as she turned back to the path. Yeah, I wonder, Naruto hesitantly said with a nervous smile. DMN it, Naruto. Get it together. You know these ghosts are just guys in costumes, so stop freaking out about it. Naruto mentally yelled as himself as he tried to steel himself for the to dare. His fear of ghosts and anything supernatural connected to them was an embarrassing fact that he would never willingly tell anyone. It was already bad enough that people like his sisters or Tsunade had figured it out. It was even a stupid fear if he thought about it. I mean, ghosts couldn't possibly exist, right? Well, there was that creepy mansion me, Hinata, and Kiba were sent to on a mission. There was also that time in Tori no Kuni when we were sent to deal with that whole cursed warrior mess. Naruto thought to himself, making his shaking worse before he shook the thoughts out of his head, telling himself that there must have been reasonable explanations. Oh. It's our turn. Lala happily said as she took hold of Naruto's sleeve and lead him over to the path. Well then, let's get going, Naruto told Lala, even though he was reluctantly letting her drag him along. Whoa, it's pitch dark, Lala commented shortly after the two had started along the forest-lined path to the shrine, the well-lit area. The other students who had yet to start slowly shrinking into the distance behind them. They said the goal is at the shrine 500 meters ahead, Naruto told her as he kept a close watch on the forest within the light of the paper lantern he was carrying. Up ahead. Naruto had noticed some of the students from the pairs that had entered before them. What's going on? Naruto questioned as the students ran past him, terrified as they scrambled to get back to the starting line. Is it really that scary? Naruto wondered as he watched them leave from over his shoulder. Looking back in front of him, Naruto was spooked when Tsurima nearly bowled him over as the boy took off after the other students who had just run past him. The hell, Tsurima? Naruto yelled out to the teen, whether he heard or not. Wait, Naruto started as he just recalled something. Wasn't he paired up with Haruna? Naruto thought as he looked around for any sense of the girl, noticing that his partner had seemed to vanish as well in the process. Lala? Why the hell am I out here alone now? Naruto yelled out in the middle of the path. Back with the other students. Come on, when is it going to be my turn? At this rate I'll never catch up with Naruto. Run was saying to herself as she stood near the starting line while staring into the dark forest, ready to run in there the moment she could. Next to the girl stood a bland-looking guy from the other class who looked bored out of his mind. Okay, pair 15 may go in now, one of the inn's attendants called out, and without a second of hesitation Run took off down the path. Hey! We're supposed to go together, the boy she was paired with yelled out as he started to run after her, only to be caught in the group of students running back to the start and getting knocked into a tree. Kaya hahaha, that's a funny face, Lala cheerfully said to one of the employees dressed out along the path to scare students. The man had on full body makeup to match the mask, a human-like creature with a heavily receded hairline, a flat nose, yellow eyes, and two large fangs jutting out of the bottom jaw that reached past the nose. Over the makeup he wore a tattered short kimono with a raged mino covering most of his torso. Heh. You're not scared of this face? The man asked after getting over his shock while pointing at his face. Nope. It looks funny, Lala honestly told him, a happy smile on her face. Funny, the man thought in horror before slumping down to the ground. I spent 6 hours on this, the man sadly said to himself as Lala skipped further along the path. Playing the ghost part seems like fun. I wanna it, Lala said as she walked along the path. You are better at scaring than being scared, Lady Lala, Peek told her, now hanging off the girl's shoulder. Lala, where'd you run off to? Naruto called out as he walked the dark path alone. This is really starting to freak me out, the blonde thought as every little sound from the forest was beginning to make him jump more and more. Hearing yet another sound coming from the brush, Naruto jumped back and instinctual reached for where he usually had his weapons pouch while training or on a mission. Feeling a bit stupid when his hand grabbed thin air, Naruto did his best to push his fear aside and see what had made that noise. Walking up and shining his light on the spot, Naruto was surprised with the sight of a frightened Haruna flat on her rump and with tears running down her cheeks. Ah! Haruna, are you alright? Naruto called out in concern as he started running over to the girl. He was halted from going any further when the girl suddenly rushed into him and clung to his chest as if her life depended on it. I'm scared. I'm really bad at dealing with all those, ghosts and stuff. Haruna cried into the blonde's shoulder. Haruna, she's really taking this hard, Naruto thought as his surprised eyes softened as he looked at the girl clinging to him. There's no way I can let her know I'm scared. I have to be brave for the both of us, Naruto thought as he was bringing his hand up to comfort the girl when he stepped on a twig, snapping it. Kaiowea. Haruna screamed out with widened eyes before grabbing hold on Naruto's wrist and taking off through the trees, unintentionally slamming the blonde into almost every tree they passed. Bravery, I'm going to need a medic after this. Naruto thought as he was dragged along like a rag doll by this frightened girl. Curses on you, two of the employees along the path creepily said as they stepped out from behind a tree. No. Haruna yelled with tears coming down her frightened face as she tightened her grip on Naruto and used him like a club to knock the guys away. Boo! Lala popped out upside down, thanks to her anti-gravity wings, from a tree with a silly expression inches away from a student's face. This had both him and the girl he was with turning around and running back to the start at full speed, leaving Lala floating there in a typical Japanese ghost outfit, a playful smile on her face. Oh, good job miss, one of the employees praised her after seeing her scare the students. I can do more stuff, Lala told them as she brought out her D-dial, leaving the two employees there with her a bit confused as to what she had in mind. I am sorry Uzumaki, Haruna apologized as her and Naruto walked along the path. When I get scared, I can't control myself, the girl said, concerned that she really did hurt the blonde. It's fine, Naruto told her with a wave of his hand as he tried to ignore his swollen cheek and other small bruises along his upper body. I've been through far worse, so you don't need to worry about me, the blonde said, though the comment made Haruna wonder just what this far worse was. Though Naruto started after taking a quick glance at the girl. I'm going to have a talk with Sarima after this. Just leaving you out here like that isn't excusable. Naruto said, hoping his injuries would help cover up his feigned blush as he looked off to the side. It's okay, 'cause you came for me, Haruna told him, a blush dusting her cheeks as she too looked off to the side slightly. But what happened to Lala? Haruna asked after a brief moment of thought. She took off ahead of me early on. Guess I was going to slow for her, especially with how excited she was, Naruto joked with a stupid grin on his face. I see, Haruna said as she turned from looking at Naruto to the path in front of them. You think she's okay? The purple-haired girl asked after a few more steps. Lala? I bet she's already at the shrine waiting for us, Naruto said as he turned to look at the girl, which is when a large group of the inn's employees in costume came running past them screaming about real ghosts. Wa? Naruto questioned as he stood there frozen in confusion. There you are, Naruto and Haruna, the familiar sound of Lala's voice coming from the dark path ahead of them had Naruto slowly turning his head forward. What did she do this Naruto was asking himself when the sight in front of him stopped his thought processes completely. Did you put on ghost makeup too? It looks so real, Lala happily said to the blonde as she stood a short distance from him and Haruna. Behind the Pinkett was a group of monstrous figures with blue spirit flames dotted around them. Lala, who are your friends? Naruto shakily asked as his even more shaky hand came up to point at the ghosts around her. It was taking every fiber of his being not to try and grab both girls and hightail it out of there. This? Lala asked turning to look at a small device floating behind her that looked like a demonic ball with its large sharp teeth and glowing yellow eyes surrounded by black. I projected ghosts using a hologram. I read a book about ghosts in Naruto Papa's house, Lala explained to Naruto. Oh thank God. It's just another one of her inventions, Naruto thought as he put a hand over his heart and let out the breath he didn't know he was holding. It was at this point of relief for the blonde that a pale Haruna, who had blocked out everything he and Lala had just said in her state of fear, grabbed hold of Naruto and with all of her strength tossed him at the ghosts Lala had made with a scream. How the hell is she this strong every time she gets scared? Naruto thought to himself as he sailed through one of the holograms and smacked his head of Lala's invention. Aok. My Daru Vision Kun. Lala yelled out after seeing the spider web of cracks spreading across the device. SHT. That doesn't look good, Naruto panicked as the device was getting ready to blow. Acting quickly, Naruto took hold of Lala in one arm and Haruna in the next and was about to jump away with them. I finally found you, Naruto. Run happily called out as she threw herself onto his back and wrapping her arms around his neck, nearly knocking him over. Run. Where did you come from? Naruto asked as he looked back at the girl, her sudden weight reducing his jump as Daru Vision Kun exploded. The force of the explosion sending all four of them flying quite a distance, landing at the top of a small flight of old, yet well-maintained, stone stairs. Naruto, you're amazing. How did you know it was going to explode? Lala happily asked as she looked up at the blonde holding her as he worked on sitting up from the face plant he just performed. Ugh, just consider it a guess, Naruto told her as he held an unconscious Haruna in his other arm and had a softly groaning rub still wrapped around his neck. Naruto was just about to curse his luck when the group heard a chorus of clapping from ahead of them. Looking ahead, they found themselves in front of the shrine with the principal, the inn's owner, and several staff members clapping for them. Congratulations. You're the only group that got through the entire dare this year, the principal excitedly cheered for him with his arms in the air and the light of the morning sun just starting to shine over the trees behind the shrine. We made it? Naruto asked while blinking a few times, surprised that they were actual at the shrine after everything that had happened during the night. Phew, I can finally rest, Naruto thought as he let out a heavy breath, only to have an excited Run squeezing him tightly afterwards. Yes. We made it to the shrine together. Now that dare's jinx will make us a couple. Run excitedly cheered as she held on to Naruto tightly, pressing herself up against him. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that whole couples thing Mio was talking about, Naruto thought with a tired grin as Lala joined in on Run's celebration. Wait, the blonde suddenly said to himself as something occurred to him. What is this supposed to mean? Naruto wondered to himself as he sat there at the goal with the three girls around him. Man, the Seaside summer school will end tomorrow, Tsuruyama sadly commented as he, Naruto, and their roommates lounged around their room at night. Now that I think about it, we were all twisted around by the principal's little finger, the boy added, referring to the fact the principal only brought everyone here to see the inn's owner. So true, one of their roommates agreed with Tsuruyama. Yeah, but you get used to it, Naruto said as he laid his futon out on the floor. Ero-sanen's been dragging me around just so he could ogle women and ignore my training since the day I met him, the blonde told them. Yeah. Well, I say screw that. Tsuruyama declared as he jumped up from his seated position to take a determined pose with his foot propped up on the small table they had. I say we take the opportunity to make this a memorable trip. Tsuruyama tell the other teens. Yeah, it'd be too sad to have it end like this, the roommate from before said, getting pumped from Tsuruyama's determination. Standing there, Naruto began to weigh his options. Sure, Tsuruyama was a young Jiraiya in the making, but he's had good ideas in the past. Why not? What did you have in mind? Naruto asked them with a grin. That's the spirit, Naruto. Tsuruyama told his blonde friend. Tonight, we go to see the girls, the teen declared as he pointed towards the heavens. In the girls' room. I wonder if the AC is working here, Mio said as she stood there trying to make even a small breeze with her hand. It's kinda hot, isn't it? Do you want to buy drinks from the vending machine in the lobby? Risa suggested. Yeah, Mio told her, followed shortly by Lala. Ah, I'll come. Lala joyfully said as she shot up with her hand up. Lady Lala, do you even have any money? Peek asked from her spot in Lala's yukata. Don't worry. Zastin gave me some, Lala told the robot. Huh? Are you not coming, Haruna? Lala asked her friend when she noticed the girl was just sitting on her futon. It's alright, I'm not thirsty anyway. I'll just wait here, Haruna tells the Pinkett. Okay, we'll be back soon, Haruna. Lala tells her as the three girls leave the room. Lala is so kind, Haruna softly said after they had left. Letting her mind drift, Haruna couldn't help herself from feeling down as she started remembering how close Naruto and Lala were when the students went swimming at the beach. Am I being jealous of her? Haruna thought out loud with a sigh as she watched the moon through the window. Okay, what's the plan, Naruto? Tsuruyama asked the blonde as the group of teens peered around the corner of the hallway the girls' room was in. Well, if it was just me I'd go in from the outside since the teachers don't check out there too often, but I'm guessing you guys don't want to go running across the roof, Naruto told them as they pulled their heads back. What gave you that impression? One of the boys asked in irritation. Yeah, hold out your hand, Naruto told them as he reached into his yukata. What's this? One teen asked as he inspected the small pellet Naruto had dropped in his hand. They're smoke pellets. Toss them to the ground if we get spotted and you need some help getting away, Naruto told them, getting impressed looks from the two boys who had come with him and Tsuruyama. Now come on. If we keep standing here like this we'll definitely get caught by a teacher, Naruto said as he simply walked around the corner and down the hall. After a quick look between one another the rest of them followed his lead. It's here, the three teens with Naruto said as they basked in the glory of the door leading to the girls' room. Am I missing something? Naruto thought to himself as he gave them an odd look. I wonder if Lala's still awake, Tsuruyama hopefully said. You know, regardless of the circumstances, she's still my fiancée, Naruto told the boy. Hey! Are there kids from the boys' room I see over there? It's almost time for the lights to go out. What are you doing in front of the girls' room? A loud voice came from down the hall. Gay! Naruto of the disciplinary team. Tsuruyama shouted as they spotted the teacher at the end of the hallway. Run, the teen shouted as they took off in the opposite direction, knocking Naruto down into the small archway in front of the girls' room. BSTRDS. Don't just run into me like that. Naruto called out to them before noticing the door slide open out of the corner of his eye. Uzumaki, Haruna said as she looked down at the blonde, who was looking back up at her. Wait. Naruto shouted as he came running down the hall. Come in quick or you'll get caught. Haruna told him in a panic, and without a second thought Naruto ran into the room past her as she quickly shut the door behind him. Phew, thanks Haruna. I owe you one for this, Naruto told the girl as he rested on the floor while leaning back and staring at the ceiling. Though I'm sorry for getting you dragged into that. I think Tsuruyama just has bad luck at this point, Naruto told her as he briefly thought back on how the boy's plan seemed to fail more often the more perverted he became. Looking back down from the ceiling Naruto was a bit taken back by Haruna's smiling face. If that's true then it's a good thing he has you as a friend, Haruna tells the blonde. Yeah, I guess you're right, Naruto tells her before the two of them start to laugh a bit together. I kinds just noticed, but where'd Lala and the others go? Naruto asked after a few moments of waiting there with Haruna. They said they were going to go buy some drinks in the lobby, Haruna tells him as Naruto was looking around the room from where he was sitting. I see, Naruto says as he fixes his sight back on the girl with him. Guess I'll just wait here then. It is what I came over here for anyway, Naruto thought to himself. Would we be misunderstood? Haruna began, drawing Naruto out of any thoughts he may have had. If we're here alone, I mean, you came here to visit Lala, right? Haruna asked, avoiding looking at Naruto directly. I came because I thought it'd been fun to spend some time with everyone. Besides, I never said I loved Lala, Naruto's response has the girl's eyes widened as she turns to look at him directly. But, you're her fiancé. How can you say dash, Haruna blurted out before freezing as her sudden actions. I am sorry, the girl apologized after seeing Naruto's surprised face and turning to look at the floor. You don't have to apologize, Naruto told her as he returned to starting at the ceiling. I helped her out when she was in trouble, Naruto said with a mostly neutral face and his eyes partially closed. I ended up in a one-sided engagement with her so she wouldn't have to go home and she ended up falling in love with me shortly after, though it's still one-sided. Don't get me wrong, I don't regret anything that's happened between me and Lala, Naruto told her before taking a brief pause, closing his eyes completely. It's just, I've never had someone say they loved me like that, and it makes me more confused than I've ever been in my life, and it scares me, Naruto tells her, leaving the last part for his mind alone. Lala was the first. Haruna thought to herself as she struggled to wrap her mind around it, surely there must have been someone who had confessed to him before this. Falling back to lay flat on the floor, Naruto tells the Haruna, sorry for unloading something like this on you. I shouldn't be giving you an unnecessary burden like this, the blonde says, feeling a bit guilty for going on like that. No. Haruna quickly tells him as she jerks back to looking at him straight on before collecting herself again. I mean, I'm happy that you feel comfortable enough around me to say that, Haruna tells him with a warm smile. Yeah, I guess I am, Naruto says with his own smile as he remains on the floor, just before the two of them heard chattering coming closer to the room. The others. I forgot about them. Naruto mentally says as he quickly sits back up, an embarrassed blush on his face considering what the two of them were just talking about. We're back, Haruna. Lala cheerfully says as she slides open the door, revealing the room's two blushing occupants. Ah. Naruto. Lala happily says as she rushes into the room and slides up next to the blonde, embracing him in the process. Ah. So he really did show up. Mio says as her and Risa walk into the room. We were actually just talking about whether you would show up or not, Risa tells the blonde with a cheeky grin. Is that so? Well, here I am, Naruto says as he lightly pats Lala on the back as she hugs him. Uzumaki, Haruna mentally says to herself as she watched him and Lala, unsure of the sight even more so after listening to Naruto. How long could it stay one-sided, the girl thought, feeling a slight pit in her stomach. After a bit of time. I know what we should do next. Mio said as the five of them sat on top of the 4 futons laid out. Turning to Haruna, the girl asked, we can start with you. Do you have someone you like, Haruna? Why all of the sudden? Haruna asked as her face immediately turned red. Luckily she wasn't alone as Naruto nearly drowned from the soda he was drinking when Mio asked that. This is a popular topic on a night like this. Mio shot back at the purple-haired girl as Naruto coughed up the liquid that found its way down the wrong pipe. Tell me the truth, Haruna. Mio said as her and Risa crept up of the poor girl. Otherwise, Risa added as a hanging threat as she held up her hands in a GRPNG motion. After a brief pause and refusing to even look at Naruto as she contemplated answering, like, Haruna hesitantly said, fearing what would happen if she says who it really is with Naruto and Lala in the room. Who is it? You can't say. I'm gonna grab your bub, Risa tells Haruna with a perverted/mischievous look. Yeah. Don't tell me, Mio starts with playfully narrowed eyes. You like Uzumaki just like Lala? Mio asked the girl, getting wide eyes from both Haruna and Naruto. What are you saying, Mio? Haruna asked in a slight panic. Is that so, Haruna? Lala asked her friend as she leaned in slightly. Kaya, I'm joking, Lala. Uzumaki can't ever be Haruna's type, who is so earnest, Mio told the pinkett as she grabbed onto her shoulder. I feel insulted by that, Naruto comments, getting a playful expression from Mio in return. But then, why do you like him, Lala? Risa turned to ask the pinkett. Don't get me wrong, but I just can't see him as being the dateable type. He'd much rather spend all day training than go out with a girl, Risa says from experience. When her and Naruto were first getting to know each other better, the blonde kept turning her friendly invitations down so he could spend his free time getting stronger. It just seems like a hassle having a boyfriend that's never there for you, the blonde girl said, making Naruto feel even more insulted even if it wasn't her intention. Not to mention how he seems so childish still. Remember how he spent the first week of school pulling pranks on the teachers and students? It doesn't really come off as the type of guy who'd be able to take of a girl, Mio added. Naruto was about to speak up in his defense when Lala beat him and Haruna to it. He's not like that, the pinkett called out. Naruto is the most dependable person in the universe. I believe as much, Lala said with a warm smile, surprising the others. I can't think of anyone else better than Naruto, Lala softly says. Yuhio, Lala, that's so cool. Mio excitedly cheers and joined by Risa. Best in the universe. Risa enthusiastically says before turning to her fellow blonde. You hear that, Naruto? You better not let a girl like Lala get away or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Risa tells the blonde. Regret it, huh? Naruto thinks with a faint blush as he looks at the pinkette out of the corner of his eye. After everyone had calmed down, what about you, Naruto? Risa asked the blonde as she laid on her futon and looked over at him. What about me? Naruto asked as he sat next to the table with his elbow resting on it. I mean, Risa started as she pushed herself up. Is Lala the only girl you have eyes for, or is there someone else you have in mind? Risa asked the blonde as she started him in the eyes, making him lean back on reflect. Someone else? Haruna thought to herself as she briefly froze up, the thought having never entered her mind as she was listening to him earlier. Ah, that's a more complicated question than it should be, Naruto nervously told her, hoping she'd drop it. How is it complicated? Risa asked, not liking his answer as she moved closer to the boy. Naruto started as he glanced over at Lala's smiling face. It just is okay. I'm not going to answer, Naruto told her with finality to his words. Ma, no fun, Risa said with a pout as she flopped backwards to lay flat on the futons. If you can't answer that, can you at least answer something else? Mio asked as she looked at the blonde boy expectantly. Getting a maybe look from said blonde, Mio happily continued, okay. Then can you tell us about your first crush? Was she a cute girl you went to elementary with, or did you have to wait until Lala showed up to fall in love? Mio asked, getting Risa's attention again. Yeah. Surely you can tell us that, the blonde girl excitedly said as she quickly pulled herself back into a sitting position, her legs spread out. As Naruto took his time to answer, the four girls watching him expectantly began to lose faith that he'd answer. With a sigh, Risa began to say, man, you really are boring to nig dash. Sakura, Naruto said, a bit quieter than normal. Huh? Risa blinked her eyes a few times. What was that? The blonde girl asked. Her name, Sakura Haruna, Naruto repeated with a blush as he looked off to the side. Ah. So Naruto had someone he liked. Lala cheered as her, Mio and Risa quickly moved in on the blonde, freaking him out slightly. What was she like? Lala happily asked, having never seen her at school nor had Naruto ever talked about her before. Yeah. Give us all the details. Risa said, getting a very enthusiastic agreement from Mio. As she's a girl in Konoha I used to have a crush on. If you really want to know about her so much, then you can ask her yourself. You'll end up meeting her eventually if you hang around me long enough, Naruto told them as he held up his arms to try and maintain some private space. Oh. So you still keep in touch with her? Risa asked with a mischievous expression. Duh, she's still my friend. Besides, we're both part of Team 7, so it'd be impossible to avoid her, Naruto said like it should be obvious. You hear that, Lala? It looks like you have some competition. Mio jokingly told the pinkette. Competition? Lala asked as she looked back at the girl with confusion. Don't put weird ideas in her head. Sakura turned me down no matter how many times I asked her out. Naruto blurted out, trying to deal with any future problems now. Where do I fit in all of this? The girl asked herself as she listened to them asking Naruto questions. She was pulled out of her thoughts however when she heard Naruto calling out for her help. Ah. Coming. Haruna told the blonde as she rushed over to try and convince the others to give him some space. The sun had set and the streets were now lit by the lights of the city. Walking out of some run-of-the-mill bar, a man stopped to look up at the darkened sky. His clothes were tattered and smelled of alcohol, his silver hair was unkempt and had to be constantly brushed out of his face, unmaintained stubble covered his jawline, and his gray eyes had a far-away look to them. "One more," the man muttered to himself. "One more, then I'll put an end to this mess," he told himself. After the Seaside summer school came to an end, life had gone back to the usual. In the morning they'd head to school, see their friends, sit through classes, and head home. For someone who's engaged to an alien princess, his life was strangely normal. To shake things up a bit, Naruto decided to head to school before the others. It wasn't much, but it did feel refreshing. Walking along enjoying his personal time, Naruto hadn't expected the cry of pain he heard as he strolled past a short alleyway. Quickly taking a few steps back, thoughts of what could have happened ran through his head as he looked down the path. What he saw was a girl in Sainan High School's uniform clutching her knee as she sat on the ground, a look of pain on her face as she rubbed the scrapped skin. Hissing in pain, she berated herself for being such an idiot. Relieved that it wasn't anything serious, Naruto toyed around with the thought of leaving her to walk it off, but in the end figured it wouldn't hurt to see just how bad her knee was scrapped. Casually walking forward, Naruto put on his best smile as he asked if she was alright. Just as he was about to offer to help her up, a bad feeling overtook him and he reflexively jumped back in time to avoid a metal tendril that came crashing through the wall next to him. "You have good reflexes. Most would be a stain at my feet by now," a hoarse voice told Naruto from the dust cloud that now filled the alleyway. As the dust started to drift away, Naruto could first see a large silhouette of something utterly inhuman. As it continued to fade away, more details of his assailant became visible. The large, imposing figure was a metal red and silver juggernaut with 2 thick legs supporting its wedge-shaped body and 4 flexible arms with clawed hands sticking out below the glass dome at the top, too clouded to see inside. Looking to the girl, nothing had changed despite the rubble that surrounded and even passed through her. She even kept repeating the same few lines before finally flickering out of existence. "Tell me, human, are you afraid?" Naruto heard its hoarse voice ask. Receiving a heated glare from Naruto as the blonde readied himself for a fight was the only answer it received. Bringing its arms up, it said, "You will be." Like usual, Riko and Lala received a warm welcome from their friends as they entered homeroom. As usual, Risa was there with her inappropriate behavior and Mio right behind her. Ren was there to tell Lala how appealing she was, and as usual he was ignored. As usual, everything played out like any other day, save for one fact. Coming to the realization that a member of the usual group wasn't here, Haruna asked the obvious. "Naruto isn't here?" Lala asked, surprise written over her face as she looked around the classroom for the blonde but couldn't see his standout blonde hair among the other students. "That's weird," the pinkett commented, her finger coming up to press against her bottom lip. "He left before us, so he should be here, right?" the girl said. With a groan, Riko's hand came up to rest on her forehead and her other arm came to rest over her chest. "That idiot," the girl breathed out with a light shake of her head. "What's wrong?" Lala asked. "Naruto," Riko told her as she took her hand off her forehead. "He probably left early so he could skip school," the orange-haired girl said, shocking Lala. "Skip school? Why would he do that?" Lala asked, her hands lightly slamming on one of the desks as she leaned in closer to Riko. "I heard he used to ditch school all the time in middle school. I'm actually surprised he doesn't do it more often," Mio said. "Yeah," Tsuruyama spoke up, coming into the conversation with a sagely nod. "Back then he couldn't stand attending classes, said they were too boring for him," the guy said, recalling how much of a delinquent the blonde was back then. "It wasn't like he was part of a gang, but he was hardly the perfect student." "How aggravating," Ren said, his arms folded. "To think someone like that would dare chase after my beloved Lala. When I see him I'll dash," the black and white-haired teen was in the middle of saying when Risa started talking. "If I knew he was going to play hooky I would have ditched school too. He's probably off having the time of his life right now," Risa joked with a mischievous grin. "But," Lala started saying with a disappointed expression, "all of our friends are here. What could he be doing that's so fun? The hell is this guy made of?" Naruto shouted as he pushed his body to its limits just to avoid the Juggernaut's quartet of arms. So far it seemed like they could punch through anything as the metallic brute destroyed everything between it and Naruto. What was worse was its instance that they have their fight in crowded areas. Every time he'd try to move somewhere like a park, this thing would cut him off and drive him back towards the heart of the city. It was a blessing that at this time of day the streets weren't too crowded, but it was only a matter of time before someone got hurt. Your efforts are admirable, but for how much longer will that body of yours hold out? The assassin asked as two of its arms extended out and slammed into the ground in front of Naruto, shattering the asphalt and concrete. Bringing his arms up to shield his eyes from the debris, the only warning Naruto had of the next attack was the sound of twisting metal before he was hit with the parked car next to him. Being sent across the street, Naruto managed to fall off the vehicle's side before it smashed into the building. Even after roughly falling back first onto the cement, Naruto had no time to catch his breath, rolling out of the way of the falling remains of the car before flipping up to his feet and jumping out of his assailant's neck, stone-breaking strike. Bringing his hands together mid-jump, several clones came into existence around him before the majority of them were instantly cut down by this thing's claws. Pairing up with a remaining clone, Naruto jumped onto the side of a building and started running for the juggernaut as he formed a rasengan. Without hesitation, the mechanical monster slammed an arm into the building, tearing apart the wall Naruto was running on, causing Naruto and his clone to fall apart as their incomplete attack faded away. Without mercy, his clone was impaled by another arm as a third wrapped around his leg and brought him crashing down with the sound of cracking cement and bone. Not finished with him, the tendril then dragged him across the ground before letting go and sending him tumbling down the road. His leg killed him, his chest hurt like a bee, and his forehead had a deep gash in it among other injuries. Safe to say Naruto was beat to hell. This sucked. It really sucked. Slowly pushing himself, the distinct taste of iron filled his mouth as blood started to mix with his saliva. Looking up, he could see the bstrd slowly walking towards him, its arms retracted back around it. No way, not in a million years would he let a hunk of junk beat him. Getting up to stand on his wobbly feet, Naruto ignored the light feeling in his head. Naruto readied himself as he stared down his foe with his now red eyes. Like before, its arms raised, and once it was close enough they shot out to crush their target. As they drew near, Naruto's eyes widened when a new figure ran in front of him. Around the pair, three of the tendrils slammed into the road. From Naruto's perspective, it seemed like time stood still as he stared at this silver-haired man's back. In the next moment he saw the man flick his left arm to the side, the mangled hand of the fourth tendril coming with it as it slid off the man's blade. His weapon was odd in that it looked like the blade was made gleaming liquid metal with a cylindrical hilt that had two prongs poking up around the blade's base. With a wave of relief washing over the blonde, he was just starting to thank the man when his right hand swung round to point the barrel of a pistol right between his eyes. Looking over his shoulder with a single, cold gray eye, the man told him, "Nothing personal." The stench of booze, cigarette smoke, and the sound of that DMN flickering neon sing were all that filled his nights nowadays. All he had to keep him company as he sat at the bar was the reflection in his glass. Slumped over the countertop, he slowly reached for his empty glass before asking the bartender for a refill. Hearing the stool move beside him, he glanced over to his left. The seat's new occupant was easily half his age, if not a third of it. She wore high heels that stayed on her feet with several satraps. She had long, perfectly sculpted legs that her blue dress did nothing to hide with the slit in the side like that. Her figure was sublime, and that face of hers could fell a weaker man. Her long sky blue hair was loosely tied in a double-layered bun with seemingly the perfect amount of strands hanging out to frame her face. Like everything else on her, her kissable lips were blue, and her light blue eyes disinterestedly looked over the counter before she too ordered a drink. For a while the pair sat in silence, every ow and then drinking from their respective glass. Bringing her glass up to her lips once more, she paused to say, "You were once the most feared killer in the galaxy. It's sad to see the past rot away like this." For a moment it looked like he hadn't heard her. After hearing the sing flicker off and on again, he responded, "You seem to already know who I am, but I can't say I know who you are." She didn't give him a name, but hearing her slide something over to him got his attention. Looking over his arm he saw her slender fingers drift away from a thin screen held between two metal pieces at the top and bottom. You've already been paid in full. We expect good results, Wolf, the woman said before placing money for her drink on the counter and leaving. As the bartender came around to scoop up the cash he picked up the device left for him. As expected his target's profile covered the screen. Naruto Uzumaki, the man mumbled to himself as he looked over the kid's name. Just his luck that some metal freak would be trying to take his kill. On the bright side it made finding the kid easy with all the racket that we're making. Running out into the street he reached into his vest and pulled out his fang, letting the metal inside the hilt pull out and form his blade before thrusting it into his competition's arm. One sheath to the hilt his blade exploded outward as metallic spikes burst from the arm. With a simple twist and pull he'd taken the hand clean off and tossed it to the side. As his left arm flung to the side his other slipped into his vest and pulled out his gun before turning at the hip to aim at the kid. Nothing personal, Wolf told him before pulling the trigger. Unsurprisingly their metal friend wasn't pleased with his interference and began flailing his undamaged tendrils ruining his shoot as the bullet now grasped the blonde's cheek. His first strike lost the man along with the kid jumped away to avoid being crushed or impaled. Continuing to jump back Wolf jumped up the side of one of the buildings, turning the end of his blade into a hook and using it to propel himself even higher after his initial jump. Quickly getting to the roof he surveyed the road below only to find no sight of the blonde. With his target gone the man saw no reason to stick around and fight this guy and took off before the juggernaut down there could decide if he wanted to kill him or chase after the kid. Running through the back alleys Naruto desperately made as much distance between himself and his assailants as possible. The one was bad enough and now this silver-haired prick shows up. Reaching into his pocket as he ran Naruto pulled out his cell phone. Quickly punching in the number he brought the phone to his ear. "Come on ya old pervert, pick up." Naruto said through gritted teeth, his annoyance growing with every second Jiraiya didn't answer. "Naruto? What do you want at this time of day?" Jiraiya asked once he'd answered the phone and by the sound of it he was annoyed that Naruto was calling him. "Ero-sanin. I really need your help." Naruto was yelling at the man when a gunshot cut him off. Slowing to a stop Naruto brought his phone away from his ear to see with a stunned expression that the top of it had been blown away. Brought into high alert again Naruto turned as he tried to move further down the alleyway, nearly avoiding decapitation as Wolf's blade slashed through his right shoulder. Pulling out his only kunai Naruto made an attempt to counterattack but the man's blade blocked his strike and wrapped itself around Naruto's weapon. Pulling his blade back Wolf yanked the kunai out of Naruto's hand before slamming the barrel of his gun into the blonde's gut with the same motion. With the wind knocked out of the kid he pulled the trigger, shooting clean through him. As he watched Naruto stumble backwards, the boy's hands clutching the new wound, Wolf told him, "I've been playing this game for a long time." Raising his gun the kid's intense glare meant nothing as he continued, "Make this easier for both of us, give up." For a moment there was silence between them, just his lifeless eyes staring back and the kid's red orbs. Moving his left hand to the wall next to him for support leaving a red streak as it slowly slid down, "Give up. Give up. My name is Naruto Uzumaki and I never give up." Naruto told the man as he took hold of an old pipe resting against the wall and charged the man. Flipping over the oncoming teen Wolf twisted mid-air, ready to put a bullet through the back of Naruto's head. What he hadn't expected was a flurry of punched and kicks from multiple blondes that sent him tumbling down the alley. Using the momentum to get back on his feet Wolf saw easily more than 24 blondes rushing him. Bringing his gun up he took out as many as he could before emptying his clip and then flipping the pistol around so he could use it as a melee weapon. As the barrage began Wolf would dodge, parry, or take head on any attack Naruto sent at him before beating or cutting down the blonde that launched the strike. In the tight space they had to fight it was difficult the clones to overwhelm the man with numbers alone and he was quickly thinning out their numbers. For Wolf it didn't matter how many were sent at him he'd cut them all down as they came. When they switched to trying to hold him down rather than attacking he took it as an easy chance to deal with them, his blade slicing through them before enough clones could get on him and restrict his movements. As it came down to the Last few Wolf was prepared to go on the offensive and take care of them to see if the original was even still there. Just as he was about to charge them, a swirling noise and blue light coming from above caught his attention. Jerking his head up, he saw two of them falling towards him with a swirling blue ball held in one of their hands. "You're an idiot if you think I'm going to die here," Naruto yelled as he threw his hand out and aimed his attack at Wolf's head. With widened eyes, Wolf watched as his vision was filled with only that blue orb, and just as quickly as it came, that sight was gone. From further down the alley, a concentrated blast of sound came crashing into them, destroying the remainder of Naruto's clones and sending him and Wolf flying. Struggling to push himself off the grim and dirt of the alley, Wolf found it hard to stay on even his hands and knees. Blood had started to leak from his ears and flow down his neck and cheeks in thin streams. With blurry vision, he was just able to make out the sight of that machine walking towards them. "To steal a kill from me is very unwise," the thing's hoarse voice rang out despite their impaired hearing. "However, I'm afraid you won't be learning from this experience," it said as its arms came up and shot out. Wolf did his best to move out of the way, but with his ability to move as he wanted gone, he was forced to awkwardly pull his blade between the attack and his body. With Wolf's battered body sent flying further, the Juggernaut turned its attention to Naruto as the blonde attempted to get a steady footing. Slamming a tendril into the blonde's side, it nearly broke the kid's arm as he went through the wall. Pulling himself from the rubble, Naruto clutched his side, his teeth stained red from the increasing amount of blood pooling into his mouth. As he was pulling himself up, he noticed that he was now in someone's, or what was someone's, apartment. "I'm through with our little game," Naruto heard that metal giant say before a loud crash accompanied ear-splitting pain shooting up from his left leg. "There will be no more running away," the machine told him as it dragged its arm across the blonde's crushed limb. "If I didn't need your head, I'd crush your bones into dust and your flesh into paste," it told Naruto as its arms shot out to eviscerate the teen. Before the blow landed, the Juggernaut found its balance destroyed as Wolf rushed and passed it while slicing through one of its legs. With its arms failing about and its body falling over, Wolf continued running, grabbing the collar of Naruto's shirt on his way and knocking down the apartment's front door. With Naruto in hand, the man ran through the hallway before making it to the front entrance. Throwing the door wide open, Wolf got the both of them outside and onto the street before tripping over his feet, sending the pair down the short flight of steps and onto the cement below. Shakily propping himself up onto his hands, Wolf struggled to control his breathing as he stared down at the stakes of blood below him from the gash on his chest. "You're not worth the effort," the man said, directing the comment at Naruto. "Annoying wretch," the Juggernaut screeched as its tendrils burst through the front entrance, taking down a good portion of the building's face. Using its 3 intact arms to walk on, it used its damaged limb to whack the assassin across the street and into the building on the other side. Slamming into the stone wall hard enough to leave cracks, the man didn't have even a second to regain his breath before the metal assailant was on him. The moment Wolf hit the ground, the metal Juggernaut had slammed its broken tendril down on his chest and began adding more and more pressure. "I will crush the life from your body. You will soof dash," the Juggernaut was shouting when half of its body along with 2 of its undamaged limbs were torn apart by Naruto's rasengan. "Guah," the Juggernaut yelled out as it fell down, cracking the sidewalk with the weight of its body as Naruto kept sailing past and hitting the wall with a loud thump before falling down next to Wolf. Across the street, the clones that had thrown him poofed out of existence. "DMNit! DMNit! DMNit!" the Juggernaut shouted as its remaining tendrils fell limply to its side and red gas leaked out of its cracked dome. "You, vermin," its hoarse voice said in between deep breaths. "I will not stand for this humiliation," it shouted as the dome and part of the larger machine detached from the main body. "Until I return, keep yourself alive," it told the pair before flying off. Left beaten and battered, Wolf slowly tilted his head to the side. There next to him laid the kid's unconscious body. Despite it all, he found himself chuckling at the whole situation. Stopping when the pain became too much for him to continue laughing, the man gave the teen a smile. "Okay kid, you got my attention." Slowly cracking his eyes open, the first thing that Naruto saw when he woke up was a white ceiling, and by the feel of it he was in a bed. Making an attempt to sit up, the blonde was quickly brought back down to the mattress by the pain in his stomach. "You're gonna want to take it easy for a while," he heard coming from his side. Turning his head to the side, a smile spread across his lips as the person sitting next to him came into view. "You gave us a real scare there for a while," Seaside told him. From his new perspective, Naruto could see that the two of them were in a hospital room. For a while the two of them sat, content with the silence between them, but eventually Naruto had to ask what happened. Giving a small nod, Seaside began to explain. "Jiraiya called Zaston to let us know something was wrong, but by the time they got there it was already over. I was contacted by he hospital some time later, and when I arrived they explained that you were brought in by a man who could barely stand on his own 2 feet. In all the commotion that ensued when they rushed you to the emergency room, the guy had managed to slip away and hasn't been seen since. Broken ribs, a crushed leg, internal bleeding, they spent the whole night patching you back up." After hearing his father talk and the way his voice cracked ever so slightly at the end, Naruto felt that he should apologize for making him worry. Shaking his head, Seaside told the teen, "I knew I'd have a lot of worry-filled nights when you entered the academy. I just didn't think I'd have to worry for a while," Seaside told him, doing his best to keep his voice together. Not wanting to let things get depressing, Seaside put a big grin on his face and started talking with more energy in his voice. "The girls were upset that they didn't get to see you yesterday, so expect them to come running over as soon as school ends." After that, Naruto stared at the man for a moment before letting out a few laughs with his own grin. "I hope they bring something to eat. I'll starve if I have to live off of hospital food for a while," Naruto joked, leading to the pair laughing together. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author marshalanime on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.